Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting, which is a meeting of the Scrutiny Committee of Basingstoke Borough Council, at which the public are welcome. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. Fire exits are located at the rear and side of this room. Go down the stairs and meet in the Moore Memorial Park. Right, how about that? I can hear me all right anyway. Please note this meeting is being webcast live on the internet. And will all members and public present switch off your phones? Now, we have a lot of visitors. All of you are welcome, but I want to begin by welcoming Mr. Andrew Dyer, who is the Managing Director of Stagecoach South, I believe. Is that correct? We'll be asking Mr. Dyer to speak with us in a while. The meeting is to consider a motion about bus services moved by two members of this committee, who are Councillors Regan and Keating, sitting on my left. And we also have with us the cabinet member responsible for bus services, Councillor Cathy Ottleton. I'd like to ask Councillor Ottleton to come and join us here and be a part of the meeting. Also on the committee, on my right with the dark beard, is Councillor Rob Golding, and he's chairman of another committee that has responsibility for Basingstoke policy towards public transport. And he may be picking up things here to carry forward. Now I welcome from Hampshire County Council the responsible executive member, who is Councillor Sean Woodward, and the head of service for public transport issues, Mr. Peter Shelley. So welcome to all of those and to all of you. Looking at the motion in front of us, I've identified four themes, and I'd like us to keep our discussion orderly by following those. First of all is consultation on changes to bus services, or lack of. Secondly, the specific cuts or changes in Basingstoke that gave rise to this motion. Thirdly is promoting public transport. And finally, there's a proposition for Stagecoach and Hampshire County Council to work together with Basingstoke and Dean to improve bus services. Now we have, I think, 22 visiting people who wish to speak. In view of that, I'm going to ask the borough councillors who are here wishing to speak to restrain themselves to 2 minutes, as that is the rule for the remainder of the public. We will in any case be here for over an hour before we actually get to talk with Stagecoach on the issues in front of us. There's Councillor Martin Bierman here. Well, I have asked Councillor Bierman to come forward first because he has double booked himself for this evening. So over to you, Councillor Bierman, 2 minutes, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for your generosity in allowing me to move forward a bit. I wish to address some specifics because I'm sure the wider issues will be addressed by subsequent speakers, except by saying that the consultation was felt certainly by most of the bus users in the Chinham ward, which I represent, to have been totally inadequate. There were odd leaflets on buses, but beyond there it didn't seem to wish to embrace the public at large. The changes were said to be for improvements to services. Now, Chinham lost the Jazz 1 service, to the regret of many people who wish to travel to Brighton Hill, but more to the point, it meant that for some reason or another, the new service 7 does not go into the bus station and just parks in the National Express bay, which is near where the nightclub used to be. This isn't a particularly travel-friendly location, because apart from the buses competing with the National Express coaches, it also means that there's no seating available. The seating is important to the more elderly travellers, of which quite a high percentage who are using the buses from Chinham constitute. Not a very satisfactory situation. When one of the travellers, at least, feeling very unhappy about this situation, wrote to Mr. Dyer and expressed his dissatisfaction in very polite terms, but expressed how difficult this was for him and older people. He failed to receive a response. And I do feel if there are changes, and these changes have consequences, that at the very least, the travelling public should have answers to the problems that occur in an orderly fashion, and a clear explanation as to what might be done to redress the problem. With that, I'll have to finish. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I hope you have a fun evening, and I will certainly be looking forward to watching it on the webcast. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bierman. Councillor Loney. Yes, Councillor Potter.
Well, two things really. I mean, you've made a decision, have you? You're taking all the councillors first of all. I thought that was just going to be Councillor Bierman. But could I just make a point? I know you've made a decision on this, but in terms of the limitation of 2 minutes for visiting councillors, it just seemed to me they've got a broad representative responsibility that they want to make this evening, which goes beyond, if you like, individual commentary. And on that basis, I can see no reason, quite frankly, why we should move away from the 4-minute allocation. It's not meant to be an elitist comment on my part on behalf of my colleagues, but I think they justify a 4-minute commentary, and we would want to hear it. I find that very restrictive.
Well, I made that decision having looked at the new constitution. We're going to be here over an hour before the movers of the motion have a chance to ask any questions of Mr. Dyer from Stagecoach, and I felt it was reasonable that visiting councillors should have the same constraints as visiting members of the public. Councillor Loney.
Thank you very much. I'm a new councillor, and I'm pleased that we've got Stagecoach and Hampshire County Council here today, simply because your fourth point was about partnership, and if you two are really partners of this borough, then I expect you to talk with the people of this borough about what their needs are. When I was putting out leaflets, the biggest complaint was about the service, especially in Brighton Hill. One lady, and I'm sorry if you think I'm going off, but I think it's important. One lady said to me in Asda, please, could you walk to the bus stop in Sullivan Road so that you can see how far I have to walk? And she had to walk through 3 car parks before she got to Sullivan Road for her bus, and that's over 400 metres. Now that's a lot, and this lady was 82, and that's because the new, or the everybody said was going to be a better service, was not a better service for the people of Brighton Hill. I would also like to ask, and I believe we've got to ask a question, I'd like Stagecoach and Hampshire County Council to walk the route around some of the older persons' bungalows in Brighton Hill, because they're not on the periphery where your bus goes. They are, and I'm talking about Brahms, I can show you so many, but they have to walk like 300-400 metres down to the periphery road that goes round, and one bus stop, I've done it just to test how long it would take, and it's going uphill once you get
1 minute,
off the bus. 1 minute left. Oh God, I've worked out for 4 minutes, so I'm sorry, I'll have to really rush it then. So what I'm asking is that you walk the route and just see where some of our older people have to walk. And at the end of the day, we are an older generation, and these older people, we see in the paper all the time about isolation, we see about people not talking to one another. The bus, it's not just about getting people from A to B. It really should offer a service. And as our partners, I hope you will consider what true partnership means. And I'd love to see you up on Brighton Hill, meeting me and letting me show you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for keeping within the time. Councillor Pearce. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I also had prepared 4 minutes until your unilateral declaration of independence. I had a call from a resident just before I came in here tonight who said for 43 years she'd lived where she lived and she'd always been able to get to the supermarket. But since February, she hasn't been able to. And that's symptomatic of the problem all across the town. All of us, all of the councillors that represent the inner town areas are finding that their residents can no longer get to the shops, can no longer get to the doctors, no longer get to the dentist without taking at least 2 buses. And of course that increases their costs quite dramatically. As a point of fact, I note that Hampshire pays £632,000 for the bus service, which is roughly 10% of the total 6.3 million. And that says to me that we're not even getting the fair share. We're not even getting our fair share as the largest group in the county. We are 13% population-wise to the whole county. So they don't spend enough money. They're not running buses in favour of people who need buses. People are not able to get to where they need to get to, and there has been absolutely no thought put into any of this. And finally, directly to Mr. Dyer, I've emailed you twice, sir, about a lady who was nearly knocked over by one of your buses, and you haven't chosen to even acknowledge the receipt of that email. And I think, as a public servant, that's disgraceful.
Thank you for keeping to time. Sorry, Councillor Cousins. Two minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start with a quote. Buses are the most important mode of public transport in Britain. They have a key role in generating economic growth, supporting our high streets and connecting our communities. I couldn't agree more with that statement. It says exactly what I believe, and it says what I want our bus services to do. I wonder if you'll be surprised as I am when I discover that the person who provided this statement was Robert Montgomery, and he's the Managing Director of Stagecoach UK Buses. Further still, it was in a document called Buses in Crisis. Irony really is a wonderful thing. And we're here tonight because of one thing. It's within the title of that document I've just mentioned. Our buses are in crisis. Our services are currently provided by Stagecoach, who on their website, if you're willing to dig for it, have a lovely infographic. It's a short collection of images and facts and figures about the company. And at the centre of this document is a segment. It's called Our Contribution to Society. Now, I won't call on audience participation here behind me, but I think you'll probably guess the answers from people when they think about the changes made in February. These are the contributions that Stagecoach say they make. Connecting people, families and communities, allowing access to health, education, employment and leisure, and supporting economic growth. So with those contributions in mind, through you, Chair, I would like to ask Mr. Dyer if he believes that the changes made in February are in keeping with those cornerstones. It is my belief that they have put their profits before their passengers, and that can be seen in their profit margin between 2012-13 and 2013-14, where there is a significant drop in their profit margin for that period. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping in time. Councillor Baldridge.
Thank you, Chair. Because I've just arrived, can you tell me how many minutes I've got?
2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to raise my concerns on behalf of my residents in Brighton Hill North. I'm talking specifically about in particular about the changes that came in the spring this year, and I just want to draw attention to the complete lack of consultation and the chaos that caused within the ward. You know, I had several residents contact me about the very poor consultation at that time, and you know, I think that's was a real issue. There's one particular thing I want to raise tonight, and that it comes about through the lack of consultation, and in terms of the rerouting of the number 1 bus. Now, I will be fair, I think quite a few of the residents in my ward in particular are pleased with the more frequent and regular service that is now operated with the number one bus, and I will acknowledge that there's been improvement for some of the residents in my ward. However, what I would say is there's been the main bus stop for the number one bus now is on Sullivan Road, which at the best of times can be a very dangerous road because it's very windy and there's a lot of speeding and traffic that go down there anyway, and that is now the main bus stop for the number one bus, and it involves residents having to cross a road and with no proper safe crossing, and it's basically an accident waiting to happen. And had there been proper consultation, this would have been an issue that would have been raised by not only myself and the other councillors in Brighton Hill, but also many residents. So that's just an example of the lack of consultation and an accident waiting to happen as a result of that. Briefly, I'd also like to mention the number 12 bus. Even though number one bus might have been better for some of our residents, there's been a real issue with the number 12 bus, the massive reduced service of number 12 bus, which has meant that residents are unable to get to work in Sainsbury's in particular. There's lots of residents in Brighton Hill who work in Sainsbury's, and as a result of these cuts, and they're now unable to get to work or have had to change their work patterns, and certainly at the time it created a lot of problems. And also young people getting to college because of the number 12 service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Parker. Two minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Many residents have approached me as East Rock Ward Councillor for the following recent changes to bus services in Basingstoke. Many of the residents in the top of town are elderly, not surprisingly when there are places like the Lady Susan Court, Emma Court, the McCarthy and Stone Flat Complex in New Road. These people often have restricted mobility, which limits their transport choices. For many of them, the regular bus service was part of the attraction of living close to the town centre. Prior to the changes, residents tell me they could get a bus every 15 minutes to the bus station. This was particularly useful as it meant they could access Festival Place or make onward journeys such as the Basingstoke Hospital or the many other destinations that can be reached from the bus station, railway station. Now, however, the bus service to the bus station is hourly, which is much less convenient for making connecting journeys, and no service on Sunday. Oddly, they seem to be able to get a bus back from the bus station every 10 minutes. This is because the route changes mean buses go past them on the way down to Brighton Hill, etc., but not on the way to the bus station. People don't want to hang around excessively waiting for connections. If your train leaves at 11 o'clock, you don't want to be at the bus station at 10. They have the option of walking to Sarum Hill, but this is a bit like walking to Festival Place anyway, and not an attractive option for people with mobility problems or an incident or in inclement weather. To read from one resident's letter, at present, in order to get to the places which are important, it is necessary to either catch a number 3 bus at the top of Sarum Hill, cross the road, then catch a bus back into the town, or a number 1 bus to Winton Square, cross the road and again catch a bus into town. What is puzzling to the residents I speak to is why it is being made more difficult for them to use the buses. These are people who wish to use buses. They ought to be a core element of the business for a bus operator.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Laura James. Two minutes, please.
Thank you. I'd like to say that the bus service we have in Basingstoke and Dean is not fit for purpose. And I ask the visitors here tonight, what are you going to do about that? That's prior to any further cuts from the county. So again, I want to know, what are we going to do about that? I also like to know, is, are we discriminating against disabled and people who are more vulnerable? And has anybody looked at the Equalities Act? And I'd like to know, are people being discriminated against? I think they are, and I would like to take a test case to prove that both the County Council and Stagecoach are discriminating against certain residents. We have people whose quality of life has been destroyed and is being made miserable by the acts of both the county and Stagecoach. What are we going to do about that?
1 minute, please.
And also, I think what I would like to know is, in relation to consultation, again, it is absolute farce. We are not consulting with residents. I've never, this election, I have never seen so many people so angry across the borough about the bus service. And I'd like to, if it's not fit for purpose now, what's it going to be like after the cuts? And Chair, before I finish, can I just also say, I'm appalled that you didn't take residents before councillors. I would have thought that the visitors should have been taken first. Can I also say, in relation to the new constitution, I was hoping that we would have a new way of working. Everybody had prepared 4 minutes as councillors, and you have cut that short. I think that's poor. And can I also say that we all have supplementaries to the questions we asked. How are you going to address that tonight, Chair?
Can I explain the reason for inviting councillors to speak before the public was that I feel it's easier for people to come forward once they've sat there for a while and see how things work. As far as the restricting the time of councillors, we have a lot of members of the public here who want to speak, and I want to move on to that now.
Can I also say that we have residents who are struggling to get home because their buses are going to go, and they're panicking and they're waiting to speak, and it's not acceptable, Chair.
The first name on my list for public speaking is Daniel O'Loughlin. Would you like to come forward? 2 minutes, please, and I hope you'll stay on to hear what Stagecoach have to say afterwards.
Thank you for having me, Chair. It's a bit ironic, I almost didn't get here tonight because of my bus being late, but that's beside the point. Obviously, a lot of residents here today, as we mentioned quite a few times, looking at kind of a lot of senior people that use the bus routes, and I wanted to really just use my 2 minutes to really talk about how the impacts on young people. It's kind of, we've been reinventing the wheel on buses here in Basingstoke for quite a long time. 2 years ago, we got together, we had a chat, we had the cabinet minister, Cathy Osland, came and spoke to us, we had a few other councillors came and spoke to us, and quite a few young people at the time made their views on transport very, very clear. I'm involved in quite a few youth groups throughout the town. We got together again and we wrote quite a comprehensive and long email to the gentleman from Stagecoach that came here again today. Like many of the people have mentioned already, we received no response whatsoever, which again is quite disheartening when, you know, it's hard enough getting young people to get together on a cause. One of the biggest concerns I'm having here, 1 minute please. One of the biggest concerns I'm finding is you know, the consultation process that went through. When we were speaking to young people, none of them knew about the consultation, about the cut things that were coming through. I've got friends who and know people who work in Festival Place, cannot get home of an evening, having to walk home. When recently, when a lot of the underpasses flooded over the winter months and there was no proper nighttime provision, again, people having to walk across busy roads. Brighton Hill roundabout up by Asda was one particular example. I know some friends of mine who were having to cross that of an evening because they couldn't get home in time. And the other big concern that comes down to is a lot of QMC students, BCOT students, will hang back late of an evening to go to the library, to do their studies, to do their assignments, and now kind of having to worry about getting themselves home or getting themselves back and forth and to and fro. And the final thing I kind of want to mention, and it's on a particular bus route that I've used quite a few times, and that's the number 12 in Brighton Hill. And it's more about, since the changes have come in, yes, the service has been reduced quite drastically, but again, a lot of young people employed up at the retail park, up there near Hatch Warren, the Sainsbury's, the Pets at Home, and and Aldi's. I got a friend of mine that pets at home actually had to quit his job because he worked Saturdays and Sundays. I was no longer able to guarantee to get his bus home of an evening, or on the Sunday where there was no buses, was having to rely on taxis. And
Thank you.
there's one tiny sentence, Chair, if that's okay. The one last thing is the type of buses on the number 12 as well. The use of double deckers has been quite common on that route, and I'm hearing quite a lot from friends of mine who've got young children with buggies. It is completely not suitable for buggies, wheelchair users, and then double deckers seem to be used quite a lot.
Thank you for that extra point. Now, you've had 40 seconds over. The next speaker is County Councillor Chris Connor. Two minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Chris Connor. I'm the County Councillor for Basingstoke Central. Hence, the bus station is within my division, and welcome to my division. You're on my division tonight, which covers East Rockbrook, Valkins, Furlong and South Ham. This is the area south of the Spine Road and encompasses 3 housing estates. On every occasion we survey these estates, always in the top 3 of complaints is the bus service. In December, when I was told by a member of the public that there was to be an improvement to the number 44A service, which would amount to a total rerouting. This route is sponsored by the Hampshire County Council. On contacting the county to determine if this rumour was correct, I was advised that they had not been consulted on any proposed amendment and that they were not in favour of any change and would take the matter up with Stagecoach. They had more impact than the rest of us did.
1 minute, please.
My great concern here is that Stagecoach was quite prepared to take public funding from the county, yet not provide the service for which it was intended. The points I'd like to bring out is the supposed improvement in service. How the cutting of services can be described as an improvement. How on some routes where the replacement of a 15-minute service by an hourly one is an improvement. How having the Berg estate serviced via Oakley by the number 11 on an hourly basis Monday to Saturday and not at all on Sunday is an improvement. How can you turn changes that remove buses from circa 1/3 of the population, particularly in the South Ham area, that had them as an improvement? Who decided that a subsidised 44A route by the county could be altered without either considering or consulting the county council? Is that an improvement? Can I expect that the buses on the route 4 and 4A, which are double-decker and therefore cannot be accessed by disabled people, yet go to the hospital to deliver them there, can be changed for buses that are suitable to carry the disabled? Will you, even at this late stage, enter into any meaningful consultation to make the changes in improvement?
Thank you. Mrs. Wright, please. I've been asked if people will tell us which bus services or which particular area they're talking about to improve our understanding.
Good evening, thank you for just letting me talk. It's the first time I've ever been to a public service, and I don't talk about things on your level, I talk about things on the public level. Please, can everybody around this table who go to work by the bus put up their hand? Thank you. No, who get to work by using a bus. In Basingstoke, number 3, South Ham, change route. My son, he is an adult with learning difficulties. He's a very vulnerable lad. For 6 years, I have dealt with Hampshire County Council, Basingstoke and Dean, Stagecoach, to get the route changed. So what have they done in February? Wonderful. My life has changed. We do not have to get up to get him to work. He has a bus on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, what did Stagecoach do? They took the bus away from the Berg. So there's no number 3 that goes down the Berg, Winchester Road. Why don't you ask what we want? We're the customers. I am absolutely fed up with not having people be able to get to work, nurses, retail. People in retail don't earn a lot of money, they've got no cars, they have to use the buses. Why don't you use the Hampshire County Council reserve money you've got? What, how many million is it? 400 million? Why don't you put that and get, and also our old people down the Berg, they need the buses down there. So, I mean, I just cannot understand, like when we have meetings with Stagecoach, it's diabolical. We're herded onto a bus, we're nowhere where we live. We should have a room like this where we can ask what we need. Nobody, Hampshire County Council, Basingstoke and Dean, Stagecoach, listen to us. We are your customers. You want to be profitable. Ask us what we want, where the routes are. Run the buses 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning up to the hospital so people could get to work. Run them at night. Social life for backward kids, there isn't one. How can they get home at night from the leisure park? How can they get home from town?
Thank you, Mrs. Wright.
That's
Thank you very
okay.
much.
Sorry, I've been a bit...
Mr. Graham, please.
Can you all hear me?
2 minutes, Mr. Graham, yes?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very, very briefly, I'm from the Backdam area, okay? I personally don't use the buses, but the elderly do, and those with young children. The bus now goes from Backdam, goes down East Up Lane into the bus station. It would take the bus about another 2 minutes to go around the top of town, because at the top of the town is the post office, and old people need to get to the post office. The other one is, on Backdam, we have no buses on a Sunday and no buses on a bank holiday. So for 2 days, the elderly who can't get out are actually sat at home and can't even get any company. And I think that's terrible. I don't know who made that decision, but whoever he is, yeah, ought to hang his head in shame. And that's basically all I have to say. Just put the buses down at the top right, turn left, go around on one-way circuit. Finished.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. Now, Mr. Hodges, please. Two minutes, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I'm an Oakley resident and bus user. I'm retired now, but I worked for 46 years in public transport, so I speak with a bit of experience. My main concern is the number 11 route. I've spoken to many other Oakley bus users, and whilst not claiming to represent them, found that they do tend to match my own views. I reluctantly concede that the economy of a 30-minute frequency is unrealistic and accept the hourly service. However, the extended journey time that the current number 11 route takes on its circuitous journey between Oakley and Basingstoke is making the journey so unattractive that many users have deserted this service. This means even fewer passengers, figures I'm sure Stagecoach can confirm, thus making the route even more vulnerable to complete abandonment. Perhaps that's Stagecoach's ultimate objective. The more able-bodied residents tend to walk to Pack Lane Crossroads and use the 76/86 30-minute frequency direct service to the town. Others use the number 11 as far as Greenway near the leisure centre and change to the number 8, giving an almost 15 minutes earlier arrival in the town centre. Stagecoach impedes this option by A, not permitting transfer with an ordinary ticket, and B, having no correlation of timing points, so you can work out changing points. I have an alternative suggestion for the number 11 route, which I'm prepared to give to Mr. Dyer and the committee afterwards to save time now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Lauren Gates House, please.
Thank you. Again, the number 12 route is not popular. With residents of Brighton Hill or the Shepherd Road area, the hourly service to Sainsbury is unlikely to attract shoppers who may have to wait an hour for a return bus. We also know Sainsbury's workers who use the old number 1, the 15-minute bus, to get to and from work. Now they may have to get to work up to an hour early to ensure they get there for the start of the shifts. Just a suggestion, couldn't the number 1 extend its route now to take in Sainsbury's, keeping the 15-minute schedule? People in Shepherd Road area were not happy from the start of the hourly number 12 schedule, and we see and speak to people who get on the number 12 and go backwards. They get off at Asda and leave the number 12, cross the road to get the number 1 into town, rather than they go all the way round Black Dam. And also, the number 1 does stop at the top of the town and the railway station before going to the bus station. The number 12 only stops at the bus station.
1 minute, please.
Most bus passengers would rather walk from the top of the town to the bottom, rather than get off at the bus station and have to walk up to the market and the banks. And that is another issue. A lot of elderly people who need to get to the top of the town get on the bus at the bus station just to get to the bus that will take them to New Road, providing access to the market, etc. The only people likely to be okay about the number 12 are Black Dam residents. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. And now Parish Councillor Billions from Oakley, yes. Two minutes, please.
Yeah, good evening. I'm a resident of Oakley and Dean Parish Council. Reiterate what the gentleman said, Mr Hodges, about the Oakley service. It is every hour now, it was every half an hour. Why it goes all round through Southam when they already got the 4, 8 and the 3, I don't understand. It doesn't go past Morrison's, it doesn't go past the doctors, it doesn't go past Beacott. Also, while I'm on it, not the 11 so much, but the 8, goes straight into town after a certain time in the morning. So anyone who's at Buckskin can't even get to the top of the town. I used to be a bus driver for a stagecoach, and I can remember years ago they had a 56 and a 50. The 56 used to go from the bus station to Sainsbury's, change number to 50 and come back down through Brighton Hill. Why can't they reinstate this service and we're the same again back the other way round? It's the same bus, it just changes numbers at Sainsbury's. It could even go round Beggarwood and still come back to town. The other thing is...
1 minute, please.
Yeah, the other thing is, we do have a service on Sundays, which is 76, which I understand is operated by Hampshire County Council and Basingstoke-Dean. It comes from Andover. Why it comes from Andover, I'll never know. But it only goes to Whitchurch during the day, and then it returns back to Andover at the last service. It's because Basingstoke Borough actually pay for this service, I understand now, from a forum that I attended. The other thing is, if the people in Oakley don't use the service, they will lose it. There's a certain saying, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And that's what's happening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mrs Richards, please. Two minutes, please.
I come from the Hatch Warren area, and you've heard most of the complaints that I have already. You've already had them from people with Brighton Hill, and the number 12 and the number 8 are the only ones we get now. And the number 12, as you've heard, is absolutely ridiculous because we can't get to Brighton Hill without going into town and back again on the number 1. And the same with everywhere else in town. It doesn't matter where you want to go, you've got to get on 2 buses. You've got to go into town and then out again. The number 8 used to go along Worthing Road, so we could get to Morrison's, the Technical College, the cemetery, places like that. We can't now unless we go into town and get the number 3 back again. It's the same with the doctor's surgery from Hatch Warren. It's moved to South Ham. Again, into town, number 3 back again. I often wonder whether the people that made up these routes have ever been on a bus, because they definitely don't know their way around Basingstoke. I've lived here for 35 years, and I have never known such lousy transport as we're now getting in Basingstoke.
1 minute, please. John Lydiard, please. Two minutes, please.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. Bus services in Basingstoke. Mr. Dyer, I believe, is here. The representative of, which one's that? You. Right. I understand, of course, that you represent a commercial organisation whose only concern is profit. As we've heard from many other people, this is not a service. The particular bus route that I'm concerned with was, if I've got this right, a number 2, which became a number 7, which became a number 12, which has disappeared. Our main bus stops are between the roundabouts on the Hackwood Road. We were told when we found out about this, I found out about it because I went to a bus stop and no buses came along. I had no notification beforehand. I also would point out at this time that we sent a letter, my wife sent a letter to Peter Smith, Transport Officer, Basingstoke and Bean Borough Council, Stagecoach, Passenger Transport Group, HCC, Brian Gurdon, our councillor, HCC. We have had no response whatsoever. This indicates callous indifference to the burghers of Basingstoke. We live approximately 1 mile from the town centre. The bus service, an alternative bus via a different route and a considerably different walking distance to arrive at, is obviously much longer. It's been reduced from the, shall I say, the number 7 of one of those, which was a 3 an hour, not brilliant, to 1 an hour, and, as you've heard before, not on Sundays. Are you concerned with this at all?
I am certainly very concerned with it, but you've used your time, thanks.
Right. Well, there is something I think I should say extra. In arranging this meeting and the way you have organised it, from a management and administration point of view, if you'd have called people up while the previous people were speaking, you could have given them, on a percentage basis, considerably more time to speak. This operation is a disaster. And I would also say something else. My experience of buses have been RTs, RTLs, RMs, and trolley buses. I also have an experience of a 33 tram. I would say that the buses, many of the buses that are on these peoples that they supply, are
as bad as 33 tram.
Mr. Lydiard, you've used more of your time and there are other people waiting to speak.
Well, if you'd have allocated and organised this properly, they'd have had much more time to speak.
Christine Lydiard. Yes. Thank you. And we have Alexandra Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I live in the Burg on Buckland Avenue, which used to have 7 buses an hour, the number 3 and the number 4, 4A. Now we have 2 buses an hour, the number 11 and the 4, 4A. They go at either 6 minutes to the hour or 13 minutes past. If you miss one, you've got 40 minutes at least to wait. We have the same circumstances when we come back. The Burg has mostly elderly people. Quite frequently, the buses that we get are double-deckers, underused, with a bar down the middle of the doorway, steps, which are difficult to get on and off. You can't get a shopping trolley up there easily, and a buggy or a pram is very difficult. And the drivers are unable to give any assistance, which means if you've got shopping, baby in a pram, you have no chance. And with 1 bus an hour, you've got to wait another hour. I don't think that's fair. I have corresponded via email with Andrew Hawkshead of Stagecoach Southern, and I had a reply when I said that he replied and saying there was a better service, modern traffic pattern and declining pattern of customers to change 3, they're at Jazz 3, and that it was done because they, were incurring penalty points for lateness. Now, I've watched many a number 3 come round with another one directly behind it. If a 10-minute service does that, that would suggest to me they should be not quite so frequently, and then people would be more fully occupied. I think the service is appalling. It certainly wouldn't encourage people. The routes go round the centre of the outskirts of all the estates and not in the middle. We have no Sunday service. It makes life very difficult.
Thank you very much. Jerry Traynor now, please. Two minutes, please.
Thank you. You'd think I ought to be used to this. Thank you, Chairman. I won't keep you long. I'm not representing anybody particularly, but I do wish to speak about the elderly. I'm rather elderly myself. I want to speak about one person. I won't give any name or who say what sex they are. But they got off the bus in Winchester Road to travel or walk up to Hillview. Halfway up Hillview, they collapsed on the side of the road because they were carrying shopping. There was no buses, no number 3 buses up or down in Hillview Road. Southam and the Burg is very commonly known as God's waiting area, because there's lots and lots of people like myself. Now, I have made a few notes, and I'll try to keep to the point. I said that about the now come to consultation. I don't remember any consultation whatsoever from myself or any of my neighbours. I don't believe the councillors received consultation either. If they did, I'm not aware. But I do think that the way this has been run is an absolutely hash. The guys that seem to be in charge, if I was their governor, they'd be looking for another job tomorrow. So I think that the sooner we get buses re-nationalised, the better. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Traynor. Now, Gerald Merritt now. 2 minutes, please.
It won't be 2 minutes, I can assure you that. Mine is more on a safety procedure. The coach bay next to the bus station, we was always led to believe that that was put there for National Express to use and other coaches, because Stagecoach would not allow them to use their bus station. I've now realised that Stagecoach had put a bus stop in that bay, and on a safety factor I think it's deplorable, because when you get a National Express, if there's two of them come in at the same time, one is then left out on the dual carriageway, traffic comes off the Eastern roundabout at such a rate that I can see an accident going to happen any day now. And any other coach form, if there's two coaches coming in, the bus that is parked there is holding everybody up. The organisation which I'm secretary, which is a Basingstoke DA at 55 for, we had two coaches going in there. One thank you very much. We had to drop off elderly people in there just recently, and there was a bus parked in there, and the driver went up and asked the Stagecoach driver if he could move up, and the driver turned around and said, "I'm here for another 5 minutes yet, that's it," and he didn't cooperate one bit. And I've already said to Stagecoach in meetings that I've had with them in the last few months, that I think if their drivers were more audible, more friendly to passengers, they'd get more passengers on their buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merrick. Zoni Asif, please. Minutes, please.
I just want to start off by saying that the biggest issue currently facing young people in Basingstoke is transport, and more specifically buses. Since the changes have been put in last year, young people have issues getting to school, colleges, getting to and from leisure activities and from work. And if the buses do run, then they are very poor quality, and a lot of the times they don't even turn up. Exactly 1 year ago, a lot of consultations were taken by the council about young people's transport issues, and I believe they were directly fed back. But a year later, I stand here and ask, what has been done about this? In fact, now that more changes are going to be taking place, I think this will have a really significant impact on people from a wide range of the spectrum, and especially on the lives of young people. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for time. Do we have another Mrs. Wright here wishing to speak? No. Now, I mentioned earlier that on the committee are the two movers of this motion. I'm going to invite them to speak and ask questions directly of Stagecoach. I'd like to take this under the four themes that are within their motion. Firstly, consultation, or the lack of it. Secondly, the specific cuts that people gave rise to this motion. Thirdly, about promoting public transport. And then finally, with Hampshire County Council here as well, and the Cabinet Member for Basingstoke and Dean, to discuss how Stagecoach and the two councils can work together to improve bus services. So, Councillor Regan, do you want to go first here, speaking on the consultation issue, please?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I think we've just had a wonderful consultation there, haven't we, with the public and the visiting councillors who are pressurised by the public. The driver behind this motion, actually, we launched before. I think it was before the cuts coming. Oh, sorry. That's not normally a problem for me. I'm sorry. The motion we put to full council in February, before the cuts come in, was because driven by the lack of consultation, and we're talking really about specifically really about the commercial services which were changed, and there are a few little remarks I want to make about the subsidised services. the motion really was driven out of frustration and lack of consultation. The first, Councillor Keating and I knew about the changes to proposed changes. I will say specifically to number 3 service, and actually a threat to number 4 was coming towards the end of December. And for the good officers of the council, we had a meeting with Stagecoach representatives, the 2 of them are here. But we had 2 meetings, and it was quite clear that they were going to bring them in without any consultation at all. And they did say, did attempt some consultation. There was a few leaflets. Some people who used number 3 or no, there were a few leaflets, and that was it. So it was going to come in no matter what. So after the two meetings, yeah, consultation, I would say, would with elected representatives such as Councillor Keating and I, and people in this room, and the residents, would have ironed out a lot of the problems, and actually would have seen where you could add more commercial routes. And they've got to make money, but we would speak specifically for the number 3, which is only my estate is only 2 miles from town. And so in terms of consultation, I have to point this out. I found out, like probably a lot of people here, it's actually I stood at the railway station waiting for a bus home. No number 3 or 11 turned up. They didn't turn up because they no longer stopped there. They stop on the way in, so anybody coming out off Sainsbury's or Tesco's or at Wilkinson's with their shopping can no longer now get a bus home. They have to cart all their stuff down to the bus station, or they have to get a bus down to the bus station, which obviously it costs, or it drives that cost the taxpayer because of the bus passes. Consultation would have done away with that. And I will say the impact of the cuts to number 3 is quite profound. I mean, ex-councillor Jerry Traynor and some others pointed out that if you go from because of rerouting into St Paul's Road, coming from Worthing Road, it's now cut off the top of Sandys Road, and a great swathe of from Kelvin Hill right across to Ilfield Road. There are over 1,000 odd people there who have not got a bus service at all, not on a Sunday or anything. They have no bus service at all. This is a state that had a bus service for over 50, 60 years. And now it's not just a new place, and you can't divide. I can't believe that Stagecoach can't devise a commercial route that would make money servicing all the people, because I've got people ringing me up saying, I can get down to the number 1, which is down the Winchester Road, walking from Townsend Close, but I can't get back up the hill again. I mean, buses are supposed to be serving the people, and you can do that and make money, I would say. The Berg Estate is another prime example. I mean, we've heard about the ridiculous route, number 11.
Councillor, have you got anything else to say on consultation?
Yes, I'm getting there.
I'd like to get back to the detailed routes afterwards.
Well, we're here because there was no consultation. I'm going to carry on.
Except
the Berg Estate has no have a bus service on a Sunday, and they went from having a 15-minute or 10-minute service to once 1 an hour. And that is an estate with lots of elder people, young people, and actually people might want to get out of their cars and use the bus. The number 4, I mean, it was quite clear in the meeting with this consultation, and I will point this out to the Hampshire County Council, is that the number 4, which is subsidised by us, by ratepayers, or council taxpayers these days, it was going to be cut from Southampton. It's only because we made a fuss and went through the county council, Chris Collins, that we got that back on track again. And also, who ever thought? I mean, it doesn't need consultation, really, just not to run a double-decker bus that's not accessible to the disabled to the hospital. Surely that's common sense.
Can we draw these remarks on consultation to a close, please?
I am, Chair. But I don't. This is our motion, remember.
That's why I'm giving you so much time.
Thank you very much. I'll pick up my notes now. If I say to Stagecoach representatives that we all know things change, routes change, populations change, etc. Times have to change. But if you consulted people properly on this, we could have sat down and agreed this. We're pleased to the vast majority of people, and that offer is still on the table. So I'm asking, have you taken note of this? Have you taken note of the residents? Have you taken note of the councillors? Have you taken the flack you got in the press? Are you going to look again at these the changes you brought in on February the 16th? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does Councillor Keating want to add anything before we ask Stagecoach to respond on consultation?
Well, Chair, I dislike your approach. You now want to tell me what I want to say, okay? I want to say what I want to say about buses. The reality is, when we heard about the proposals, we asked for a meeting with Stagecoach. And we had a meeting with Stagecoach. And one of the things we said to them, I'm a representative of Southam, so I'm talking about Southam. One of the things we said to them, legitimately, was, if the costs of having 3 buses an hour through the Burgh Estate and the rest of Southam is too much, and you want to reduce costs, have one every half hour. In other words, cut out 1 bus. You'd reduce costs, but you still have an acceptable service for the people that you were providing a service to. But the answer was, we have decided 1 an hour, take it or leave it, and by the way, we've decided you're having it anyway. When we asked about routes, we were effectively told, nothing to do with you, we've decided. When we started talking about cutting out the whole of the centre of Southam as to provide any form of service, we were told we've decided. And we were then reminded that we didn't have any right at all as elected representatives to be consulted in the first place. We didn't have any rights. Now this is the same organisation, Stagecoach, which has its hand out to the Borough Council anytime it wants, which has its hand out to the Hampshire County Council for lots of things. This is the same organisation, Stagecoach, which says to the County Council, oh, the curbstone for our bus stops are too low. You need to bring the curbstone up. So the County Council spends money altering the curbstones. And what happens? Then Stagecoach tells us, oh, by the way, the bus is not going down that road anymore. And that's what happens all of the time. Now, so then we talk to the public, we dished out letters to every single home in Southam. And then we had a signature. We had 1,200 signatures in a petition, and we didn't organise it. It was organised voluntarily by residents. And I want to pay tribute to them for doing that. We sent it to Mr. Dyer. Now, anybody who gets 1,200 signatures from one ward in a large town would at least have the courtesy to say, thank you very much for the signature, for all the signatures, we'll actually have a word with people.
1 minute, please.
You cannot control my time. I'm a member of this committee. When we sent the petition, Stagecoach didn't even acknowledge it. Now, this is the kind of service that we do not want to have. This is the kind of bus service which doesn't provide the service that the people want. We need a bus service that allows people to get to work, allows people to get home, to get to school, to get to college, to get to town, to get to the pub, to get anywhere. But you're providing a service which actually does result in people saying, there's no point in using the bus, it doesn't provide the service I want. Now, the reality is, I think I've taken enough of your patience, Chair, so I'll stop for the moment.
Yes, I did inform you last week of how I intended to divide the subject up, but we have, I think, covered both the consultation and the recent cuts. which is the time to invite Mr. Dyer or his colleagues to respond on that. I'd like to say something on that, which is I hope we can approach all of this in a spirit of partnership. People have used that earlier. And I realise that we're talking here about the commercial services of Stagecoach, but this council does pay out in excess of £400,000, which reaches Stagecoach each year, some directly, some through the county council, which I think is our contribution to the partnership, and I hope that we can approach the rest of the meeting with that in mind. But I can see a member wants to speak, but I'll come to Mr. Dyer very quickly. Yes.
I've got plenty I want to say myself, Chair, but can I add 2 other public contributions before Mr. Dyer begins? I've been contacted this afternoon by residents in Bramley and Sherfield who unfortunately couldn't attend this evening because there was no bus to get them home. They wanted to come, they wanted to speak, but they had no way of getting home, so they rang me instead and said, could I please express their concerns about the bus services that Bramley and Sherfield are suffering from. Deeply concerned about the lack of service, the timing of services and the routes that they're having to do to get to GPs and other facilities in the town. The fact that so many people in those rural communities are reliant on the buses because they don't have cars. Not everybody who lives in the villages has a car. Not everybody who's older or younger has access to private transport. And they felt very clearly that some of them even said they'd even be willing to go as far as, I've got my bus pass, and this is a direct quote from one of the ladies that rang me this afternoon, I'd even pay a little bit on top of my bus pass if I could get a bus that took me to where I wanted to go in town. The other issue that I've had raised is from workers at Sainsbury's. And this is the final point, the final public contribution that I've been asked to give this evening. Of those workers at Sainsbury's who talked about their lost jobs, who lost hours of work, who had disabilities, who couldn't use the transport that was available to them, but also the safety issue. Because the buses were no longer available to them, they were walking at the dead of night or in early morning to make shifts through the streets of Basingstoke quite early. I'm talking about really early mornings, and I'm talking really late nights as well. And they felt that it wasn't safe. Now, Basingstoke is an incredibly safe town, and we're not saying that. Here are residents talking about perceptions and issues of walking through the dead of winter when the cuts came in February and March, and the issues they faced. And the other issue we had was double-decker buses, and the one example that was related to me, this is the thing I'll finish on, Chair, thank you for allowing me to do this, was a mum stuck at Sainsbury's with her shopping in her pram who couldn't get on the double-decker, asked the driver to help her, the driver refused, the driver drove off and left her stood there with the pram, the babies and the shopping. That is disgusting. And when I think about yesterday, I was in London, and on Friday I was in London, quite happily, South West trains were quite happily helping disabled people and mums with buggies on and off their trains. Shame you can't do it for your buses. That was an issue that the residents have asked me to raise, just those 2 areas. So Sainsbury's workers and their issues, but the issues that Bramley and Sherfield are also suffering from, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And now I'm going to ask Mr. Dyer to respond in whatever way you would like.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just take that last issue first? All our drivers are asked to assist the public wherever possible. And I guess, like any group of staff, I think the majority of our drivers do a very good job. And there are a few who don't. And I'm just as appalled as Councillor Harvey to hear that one of our drivers has refused to assist a member of the public and has just driven off. And when that sort of thing happens, we really need to know about it so that Rob on my left, who is our local operations manager here in Basingstoke, can take some action with the individual staff member concerned, because it's obviously, when something like that happens, it's a matter of targeting a specific member of staff. Your four themes, Chairman, and perhaps I think in the comments that Councillors Regan and Keating have made, we probably covered the first 2, as you say. On the question of consultation, perhaps just a little bit of background. The last time there was a really big change to the commercial bus network in Basingstoke was when Festival Place opened in 2001. And in the intervening period, we've seen changes to
the demographic of the town, we've seen new housing areas. Sadly, we've seen steadily increasing traffic volumes, which have caused us issues with bus service punctuality. And so we felt it was the right time to have a real root and branch review of the whole commercial bus network, which was probably quite overdue. Now, that involved very detailed analysis of exactly who travelled where, and also, of course, we took into account of the fact that whilst the vast majority of the bus network in Basingstoke is commercially operated without any subsidy, there are some routes which are financially supported by the county council, and so therefore clearly we had to discuss with the local authorities the changes that we had in mind. It's perhaps worth just pointing out to people, and I'm sorry if I'm teaching granny to suck eggs in some cases, that of course the bus industry doesn't get any general subsidy from the public purse other than relief from the fuel tax that we pay. When as individuals we buy a gallon of diesel at the pumps, 58 pence of that goes to the Chancellor of the Exchequer. When a bus is used on a local bus route, then we are able to claim 34 out of that 58 pence back from the government. So we do get that subsidy in terms of fuel tax relief. And we think we're hard done by because the trains get it all back, but that's another story. Whilst we do get a lot of funds from the local authorities, none of them I think actually you can describe as subsidy to the bus operator. We get paid for carrying free concessionary pass holders, and of course that's a subsidy to the pass holder. It's not a subsidy to the bus company. And when the local authority wants to buy bus services which no bus operator will provide commercially, that's of course the local authority procuring a service which they put out to competitive tender. It's not a subsidy to any one particular company. It's a service that the county council wants to procure, and all operators are invited to bid, and the successful operator wins. I've likened it a little bit to if a local authority wants to buy some new desks for the office, and they put out a competitive tender, that's procuring a service. I don't think anybody would describe it as a subsidy to the furniture industry, and I think that's how one has to see the question of tendered bus services. It is the local authority, and of course they don't have a legal obligation to do that. It's the local authority making a decision to support their communities by providing additional services. Going back to the changes in February, having done the review of the various routes and come up with our very initial plans of what we thought might happen to the commercial bus network, we first contacted both borough and county councils last October, so about 4 months before the changes actually happened. Now, of course, when you do that, there is immediately a great dilemma, because we were sharing very initial thoughts with the local authorities, with the officers. And if all those initial thoughts had been shared with the wider public, I think it would have set all sorts of hairs running about things that might or might not have happened, and many of those initial thoughts didn't actually happen. And so there is a dilemma about at what point in the consultation process do you involve both local members and the general public more widely. I certainly accept in this case that probably we didn't do it soon enough. And I've already had meetings with Councillor Mrs Ostleton, and I think we've agreed between us that when something like this happens again, we do need to pay more attention to consultation. There will always be that dilemma about how many people do you frighten unnecessarily about something that might never actually come to pass, but we do accept that consultation, I think, should be more effective when we have to do this next time round. As far as the changes themselves are concerned, the analysis that we did showed that the vast majority of our customers on the old bus route network were using the buses to travel from whichever part of the town they lived in to the town centre. And so the network was designed to try and give those people, which are the vast majority of our customers, the best possible service. And I accept entirely the criticism that says if in Hackwood the service used to be every 20 minutes and it's now once an hour, how can you describe that as an improvement? And of course you can't. But there are services, the main service from Brighton Hill into town now runs every 7 to 10 minutes. That's the most frequent it's ever been. The service out to Borghurst has increased in frequency, and the number of buses per hour from the town centre to the hospital, I think, is probably the highest it's ever been. So, yes, there were improvements. I accept entirely that there were winners and losers.
Thank you. I have to take issue with your comparison with buying furniture, because here we have the customers, the members of the public who are the customers of Stagecoach and the customers of the councils. They don't mind very much what sort of desks the council has, but they're profoundly affected by this. And I think we all have, and by that I mean the councils here and Stagecoach, an obligation to those customers, which is quite different from any obligation to any sort of supply that's being done. But I heard what you said. I think Councillor Gavin James was trying to catch my eye.
I just had a couple of questions for Mr Dyer on the back of the consultation in particular. Yeah. I mean, actually one question's on a comment he made. He mentioned the drivers, the quality of the drivers, and that some drivers, or most drivers, offer a very good service, are very helpful. Some drivers don't, and he wants to hear about it if they're not offering proper service. During the opening remarks from the public, Daniel O'Loughlin, Councillor Bierman and Mr Lydiard both mentioned they'd written to Stagecoach and were still waiting for a response. So what confidence can we have that if we do have an issue with a driver and write to him, he's going to get back to us and deal with it?
Mr Dyer, please.
Yes, I mean the best way of people contacting us is either through either by email or through our website or by phone, and our customer contact centre is well publicised on every bit of Stagecoach publicity that exists, and so that is the best way for members of the public to contact us, so that it can be passed to whichever manager is concerned to get a reply to them. I should just mention, actually, on that subject, that I do personally owe an apology on the subject of the 1,200 signature petition, because quite rightly, even if we weren't going to make instant changes as a result of it, that my lack of response isn't acceptable.
Councillor Regan.
No, I was just going to say about the 1,200 petition, which is sent in on the 6th of February, actually, by recorded delivery. So there's no excuse whether it's email or what. So I accept your apology, but all right, apologise. But what are you going to do about it, you see? Obviously, as I said before, I mean, I understand what you're talking about, commercial routes. We don't want to get mixed up with subsidy, because subsidised routes falls out what the commercial routes are not covering, so under legislation. So what I'm saying, as I wound up in my little bit before, is that we all understand that demographics and things change. I'm talking about right across Basingstoke now, but But we are willing to talk to you about improving the services. You must got the message tonight that you might be happy with the changes as it looks on the desktop and under analysis under data, but under coalface with the people getting on buses, it is not. Are you going to take note of what is said tonight and improve the services?
I should certainly be taking note of what has been said tonight. There can't be any guarantee that we will improve any particular service, because I think this is really the heart of the issue, is that we fully understand that members of the community will have a very urgent need for a bus. In the current legislative regime that we operate under, and I won't go into a great boring long discussion about the way the 1985 Transport Act works, but our problem is we have to have enough of those people to make a service financially viable. Somebody said earlier on, words to the effect of Stagecoach was only interested in profit, not its customers. And we are very, very well aware that the only way we make a profit is by providing the service that people want. And I think we're very proud of our record of reinvestment as well. But it does come down, when you're looking at an individual route, to actually say, are there enough people going to travel to make a particular road worth running down?
Councillor Poster.
Hello, Mr. Dyer. Sorry. I mean, it is a bit ironic. I mean, you obviously mentioned, I think, in that last statement about the deregulation that took place in the mid-80s, I mean, which was supposed to be this market-driven approach, which actually, was meant to apply from that time. And it seems to me in Basingstoke, I mean, ironically, we have no market, no competition, and all we've got is a private monopoly. That's the situation we've arrived at. But in regard to what you talked about in terms of your review of the commercial bus service in Basingstoke, obviously that had been in your thoughts for some time. It materialises at the time that we know. But I think in amongst that, you talked about contacting the Basingstoke and Deane Council and Hampshire County as far back as October 2013. I mean, if that is the case, I don't think about that. Can you tell me what form of contact that was and who was that with? What type of notification dates back to October 2013?
Mr. Dyer.
Yes, certainly it was verbal contact with officers at both councils. I can't remember. I think it was late October when we actually first met. But as I say, it comes back to the point that I made before, that there is this issue about at what point do you go public with your thoughts? And I think I've already acknowledged that perhaps we didn't get that point quite right this time, which is why I had the discussion with Councillor Ossleton that I did. If you ask me the question, do I think it was right not to go public in October or November, then yes, I do think that was absolutely right, because all we would have done would have been to have set far too many hairs running when we hadn't really made up our minds on a final draft, let alone the final solution.
Did you not think that perhaps councillors could be trusted to keep their confidence while feeding you back some information?
I think, I'm not suggesting for a minute that councillors can't be trusted, but I think as an operator, then I think we do rely on officers and exec members for their advice as to when we publicise things more widely, and that's exactly the point of my discussion, as I said, that we have had, and saying with hindsight, perhaps we should have done it a bit differently.
Councillor Passy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, this has been here an effective consultation forum. The public has been here. Mr. Dyer heard from them, but he didn't really point out what really they have been asking. What it looks like, the perception of the public that it is not a public service that Stagecoach is providing, but a profit-making service, a handout grabbing service. This is a perception that the public have there. And what I'm looking at is that the last consultation, he said, was when Festival Place was built. And then he's telling us that the consultation has already been done and everything is in place. But there will be at the next, when is the next consultation going to be? I want the time scale. I want to know how we can really make satisfy these people. Mr. Dyer, would you be able to tell us when is the next consultation? When can we get the bus service right in this borough?
Mr. Dyer?
It won't surprise you to know that I take a bit of exception to being called handout grabbing, because any funds that we receive from local authorities are by competitive tender. I remember seeing a copy of a local political news sheet that was circulating in Basingstoke some while ago, claiming that contracts were just being dished out to Stagecoach, and that is absolutely not true. The question of further changes, we're one of the reasons, as I said earlier, for that was part of this review was the need to improve bus punctuality. And just as an aside on that, people have mentioned about the top of town. I think I've got in my drawer somewhere in the office a letter dated 2001. No, this was from me, asking for more bus priority measures in Basingstoke, which of course have never actually come to pass. And that would help us no end with the subject of bus punctuality. We are making some minor changes to try and further improve punctuality. I know that particularly there have been some problems on Route 6, because I think somebody mentioned about two buses running together. Well, that's the last thing that we want, and there will always be some cases when something goes wrong and a bus is involved in an incident, somebody falls over, or there's a roadblock with an accident, or a bus breaks down. There will always be occasions when one bus may catch another up, but not on a routine basis. In terms of a wider review, we know, and I don't want to speak for Hampshire, that wouldn't be right for me to do so. But we know there is going to be a review of the supported bus services network in the county, which is probably going to take effect, I understand, early next year. The one thing in my many years of experience in the industry is that people hate frequent change. And so I think if we are going to make further changes to the commercial bus network, other than the minor adjustments to improve punctuality, the sensible time to do that would be at the same time as the county council and borough, because as the chairman quite rightly said, of course, Basingstoke and Deane borough is one of not very many in the south of England who actually contribute directly to public transport services. I know there's a little bit in Eastleigh, but many district councils don't make any contribution at all, and so I do think that the public of Basingstoke is very lucky in that regard. But I think the sensible time for a further review, in conjunction with both borough and county, would be to tie in terms of a timetable, when the county while the county is reviewing its supported services network.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, please.
Hi, I'd just like to say about the consultation, I wasn't aware of it. And I do feel that you're cutting the services, the fares are going up and up and up. And what are the people paying for is just getting profit all the time. People can't live their lives in Basingstoke as they wish because they are living when the bus is. And I feel that if you win the contract, then you have a duty to provide people of Basingstoke a bus service and also a good quality of life.
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, because the vast majority of services aren't run under contract to anybody. And as far as fares are concerned, I think if we look over the last 5 years, and particularly because of increases in costs that bus companies face, and that's not just stagecoaches, any bus company, are obviously very linked both to the cost of staff, which is nearly 2/3 of all our costs, and also the cost of fuel. They're the two biggest things. And certainly if you look at fare increases, which have been a little bit more than inflation, but not a great deal, yes, people have seen fares go up. We've never put fares up in the last, I can't think how long now, but probably 10 years, more than once a year. So yes, there are inflation-linked fare reviews, but I would certainly assert that they are not excessive.
Councillor Golding.
Thank you, Chair. Consultation and changes, I have one general point and one specific one. On the general one, I shared Councillor Potter's surprise that our officers were consulted on this in October, because that wasn't the impression I'd been given up to now. As we're a scrutiny committee and as the relevant officer seems to be present, can we ask him to indicate whether he indeed was aware that he was consulted in October? Because if he indicates that he wasn't, I think we need to press Mr. Dyer to elaborate, or go, if necessary, go away and find out why he thought he'd consulted our officer and our officer wasn't aware of it. I don't know whether the officer can indicate whether he accepts the October date.
Peter Smith is going to speak.
Yes, it was towards I can't remember the exact date, it was towards the end of October. It was a verbal communication to start off with, which I believe followed a phone call from Hampshire County Council.
Thank you. That clarifies that. We can think about our internal function some other time without Stagecoach present. It's on the specifics of the replacement of the number 8 from Oakley, which I represent with the number 11, and the fact that 2 members of the public have already spoken. I think Mr. Dyer said something that your analysis was that the vast majority of your customers use the bus to get from where they live to the town centre, and therefore you aim to provide the best possible service. How can you possibly construe replacing the fairly direct route 8 with the circuitous, whilst it goes to very nice scenic areas of South Ham, 11, it is certainly not the best possible service to the town centre and is clearly driving customers away. And secondly, when about a week, I think it was, before the changes, councillors here were provided with a letter which outlined the main changes in the services, and it did say the 8 was being discontinued from Oakley, and it said the replacement is still under consideration. Now, I assume that that week before you were actually thinking about this circuitous route, and would it not have been more honest at that point to say, I mean, we all assumed we'd get a less frequent service, but we didn't assume that we'd get such a roundabout service.
Mr. Dyer.
Yeah, I mean, the starting point from the service from Oakley was that it was losing money, and that a half-hourly frequency was not commercially viable. And then obviously the other parts of town that we were, from a commercial point of view, looking at leaving with no service, were the 2 main ones were the Berg Estate and then the part of the southern part of town through Hackwood, which somebody mentioned the old Route 7 had served. And they were, I mean, Service 12 that has served Hackwood is serviced, is part funded by the county council. And at the time we were drawing up the route through the Berg, we were looking at how we could, Service 4 runs through the Berg, and so we were looking at how we could provide that area with more than one bus an hour, and diverting the service from Oakley through Southam was the way of achieving 2 buses an hour rather than 1. Now, I would accept that some people might take the view, well, that's the worst of both worlds, because that part of Southam hasn't got the frequency it would like, and people from Oakley have got a much longer journey into town. And I think, given that route number 4, which overlaps with that part of the Oakley service, and route 12, which goes around Hackwood, are both funded by the local authorities, that will clearly be a whole area that we need to review going forward.
Thank you, Captain James.
Again, it's more of a general thing, not a specific route, because I don't think my area's got a bus route. But it's around the consultation. We've obviously accepted that the public consultation of existing bus users was inadequate, and a few leaflets on the bus really only work if you're the first person to get on the bus in the morning. If you're on midday, they've all gone. But in terms of, I mean, your Mr. Hawkshead sent a letter to Alexander Abbott talking about declining numbers, and that's the reason for the changing of the services. What work was done with non-bus users to try and get them to catch the bus? So rather than cut services, we increase numbers.
Right. We have done, at this particular time, the answer is none. But over the years, we've done a whole range of different promotional initiatives to try and get more people using the bus. I'm trying to remember now when we did a special promotion with cutting the price of weekly tickets to try and get people to shift to using the bus. So there have been initiatives. I think the consultation thing was certainly wider than a few leaflets. I mean, there were posters displayed on every single bus, so all existing users would have known. And of course, there were the electronic methods as well. So we were flagging up the fact that there were going to be changes. Then, of course, you needed the individual leaflets, which were available either on the website or in the bus station travel office, to actually get the detail of what was happening on your particular route.
Just supplementary, Chair, around the, obviously again, it's always perception of consultation, not the consultation you intended, but the one that they've received, which generally the view was it wasn't very good. But as a sort of big question then, since the changes, you've obviously got the ability to compare since February this year to since February last year. Following the changes, what's the increase in passenger numbers overall?
The passenger numbers have been pretty static. The whole driver, as I said at the outset, was that we had to review the network, and the current one wasn't meeting its financial target. So the end result of the whole exercise was that we weren't seeing the level of income that we needed to for the number of buses that were on the road. And so the overall effect was that the new network is run overall with 2 fewer vehicles than the previous one. We used to send out 56 buses a day out of the doors of Basingstoke Depot. That's now 54. So in terms of has it achieved, from a pure financial point of view, the objectives, we're carrying roughly the same number of people with 2 fewer buses, so that has helped protect the network for the future. So in that regard, yes, it has worked.
One more, Chair. As a business model, and I've worked in business myself, normally in business, you look at increasing customers rather than just cutting costs. But from what you're saying, the whole rationale behind the changes was not to improve the service, to increase customers, but actually to cut costs.
Over the years, we've done a mixture. Obviously, one has to cut one's coat according to one's cloth. But you are absolutely right that we need to try and attract new customers as well. And I would say so, wouldn't I? But I think if you look at I haven't got any figures with me, but if you look at the number of passengers using the buses in Basingstoke now, say compared to the number that we're using it when we did our last big change when Festival Place opened, there is a significant increase. So longer term, I think we are achieving that objective. Of course, since 2009, we've had a recession to deal with, which has affected us in the same way as it's affected so many other businesses.
Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'm not an expert on how the competitive tendering works, but you said in response to one of the councillor's previous questions that none of the routes were under contract. Is that what you meant?
Sorry, perhaps I misled. I didn't mean. The vast majority of bus routes in Basingstoke are run commercially by us, and so they're not under contract to anybody. Where no bus service exists, and no operator is prepared to run, that's when the local authorities consider social need and decide whether a timetable should be put out to contract for operators to bid for. So our network in Basingstoke, as within every other part of the UK, is a mixture of commercially operated service and contracted. In Basingstoke, the commercially operated part of the network is about 85%. I'll perhaps just add one throwaway comment. One of the speakers mentioned his upbringing with particular types of old London Transport double-decker bus. And I would say that if the government put as much money into passenger transport support in Hampshire as it does in London, we probably wouldn't be here this evening, because people see how good the bus services in London are, and I accept that they are excellent, but they're only excellent because there is a huge amount of support coming from government, and I'm sure Peter Shelley and Councillor Woodward would be dancing around the room if they had London levels of subsidy.
Yeah, sorry, forgive my ignorance, but if 85% of your operation in Basingstoke is under, as you call it, commercial arrangement, don't you have to negotiate with Hampshire County Council that you're going to operate in that commercial environment, i.e. a licence or some franchise in order for you to be operating in the first place?
No, absolutely not. That was the legislation that the government brought in 1986, which swept away the old bus route licensing system, where actually it was the Department of Transport had to approve any bus route and took views from local authorities. And once somebody was running a route, then nobody else could run it. So it was a sort of a licensed protectionist regime, which had run from 1930 until 1986, and that was all taken away to open business up to the free market by that legislation, which of course is nearly 30 years old now.
Now, I've got five members wanting to speak again on this issue, and I'm going to close the list at that point. So, Councillor Regan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to the consultation you started in October, was your consultant at the same time you put in a bid for the shuttle bus service?
I can't remember when the invitations to tender for the centre shuttle came out. I don't know whether Peter Smith might be able to help me on that. But they were two completely separate subjects in any case, because the centre shuttle is obviously a completely self-contained operation. At the time, we weren't the operator of it. We bid on a sealed competitive tender basis on the same as all the other operators that bid. Obviously, I don't know how many of those there were, but it was a completely separate exercise.
I'll come back on that. It's the point I'm trying to make is if we had known that the change you can bounce the community into, we certainly wouldn't have been to question your ability to run the shuttle bus service. Actually, that's the point I'm trying to make, because it was devious.
Well, I take exception to that remark, obviously, because I don't think it was devious at all.
Yeah.
There was a timetable for Centre Shuttle. Operators were invited to bid. We were one of the bidders. I assume that officers and members decided that our bid for that contract was the most competitive, and it was awarded to us, and I don't think it had anything to do with anything else at all.
I have to say that Mr. Dyer doesn't have to be here. He's here at our invitation, and I don't think it's a good idea to insult him while he's here.
That was not an insult, that was a comment, Chair. And Mr. Dyer is running a commercial service. There's customers around what he wants to say. I think this is a good public meeting. I'm sure the Stagecoach in future will hold public meetings to discuss future services with our customers.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Several questions. Can I start, Mr. Dyer, with your comment that the services before the review were not meeting their financial targets? I'd like to understand what motivated you to do the review in the first place. What were the financial targets that you were missing?
Well, it was the result of the recession, which meant that profitability of the routes was falling, and that's why we had to review the network.
Okay, I'm just struggling here because your pre-tax profits for the years following 2009 were over a near 200 million and significantly up. In fact, your entire pre-tax profit this year was based upon your regional bus operation at 4.8% increase in profits. So I don't see the correlation that you're arguing at all. And in fact, your own accounts don't correlate to what you're saying. You are a profitable company, and a significant part of your profit is coming from your regional bus operation. So may I ask you again, what were the financial targets that you were missing in that context? Were you in fact making a loss here in Basingstoke? Because your accounts don't seem to show so.
Well, of course, I stand by what I said before. The way that any sensible bus operator runs its business is to ensure that its bus network is managed right down to a detailed level, and one has to look at the contribution of every individual bus route. And so I stand by what I said before, was that the bus network in Basingstoke had seen falling levels of contribution. And if you go out and look around the town, and perhaps I need to respond on the point of double-deckers in a minute, which several people raised, but there are an awful lot of new buses. Stagecoach has put a huge amount of investment, millions of pounds, over the last few years into upgrading the bus fleet here, and the only way we can make that sort of investment, which secures the long-term future for both the services for the public and for the jobs of our staff, is to make sure that the individual routes are financially viable.
Of course, all your new stock is tax deductible. On your company website, it says that you've actually invested in nearly £300 million of new stock. So just in relation to the double-deckers and the buses around Basingstoke, a lot of people are angry that you've got the wrong buses on the wrong routes. You've got large buses running around the town empty. You've got double-deckers that people can't get on, so they actually are losing customers. And in many other towns, you run the small runabouts. There aren't any small runabouts in Basingstoke in a way that would generate passengers and also in many ways improve your route times. The management of your bus network in Basingstoke is a very serious issue. Do you acknowledge that from the residents and the concerns that they raised with you this evening?
Yes, if you'd like to deal with double-deckers in the course of your answer.
I understand entirely residents' concerns. I don't think the Basingstoke bus network is badly managed. I think it's very, there's two issues, aren't there? One is, does the bus network suit people? And of course, clearly we've heard a lot of concerns from people tonight who said, no, it doesn't suit them. And I understand entirely that whilst we quite genuinely have made this latest round of changes to try and suit the vast majority of people, there will be some people for whom it's not as convenient.
I think you'll find that you've made the changes to the bus network and it's the vast majority of people that don't like your changes. It's the other way around. I mean, looking at this bus route, looking at the way you've changed this, the question I've really got to try and drive at, I think, in terms of consultation, is your corporate priorities. And this is where I'm really struggling to understand your motivation here. You claim on your website that we connect with communities, that we and our services play an important role in helping people in rural and urban areas access work, education, health, shopping and leisure. Putting customers first is our priority. We're working hard to increase the quality, reliability and frequency of our bus services. There are your corporate priorities. That is what you are allegedly supposed to be doing commercially as a commercial company. Don't want to talk about the subsidised stuff yet. I want to talk about the commercial side. Yet you have most councillors in Basingstoke, most residents groups in Basingstoke raising the buses, the quality, the punctuality, the standard, everything to do with buses as the #1 issue. Yet you sit there obviously oblivious to it. Where are you reacting to? What are you going to do from tonight to address any of the concerns that you've heard this evening? What are you actually going to do?
I think it's a bit unfair to say that we're oblivious to it. The corporate objectives that you quote from our parent company are absolutely right. And those are exactly the things that we strive for. But as I said before, this whole change process that came about at the beginning of this year was because we had to match supply to demand to make sure we had a continuing ongoing success. And and any business, nothing to do with bus companies particularly, has to achieve its corporate objectives while still remaining financially secure. I mean, Stagecoach and its predecessors have been running buses here for nearly 100 years, I think, and we would very much like to be doing so in 100 years' time. And so, we have to keep adapting things for the future. In terms of what are we going to do, we have a process of constant review of our passenger numbers and who's using which service. And I think I said earlier on, I think taking on board the comments that have been made tonight, whilst I can't promise here and now any particular improvement, I think I have committed to a further review aligned to what I think is going to be the County Council's timescale for their wider review of bus services in Hampshire. Can I guarantee any improvements on any particular route? Well, I would not be being truthful if I said, oh yes, that'll be vastly better in January. I can't guarantee that. But what I can guarantee is a review of what we did in February to see what further changes we can make.
Councillor Harvey.
I think the cuts today. I'm finished yet, Chair.
No, Councillor Harvey, I think it's time for the others who are queuing to speak.
Well, in which case, Chair, I'll leave my hand up and to come back in again.
He hasn't spoken before.
That was the first time I've spoken on this subject.
Carry on.
Thank you. So as I was saying, I think the issue with the County Council subsidies is something that we want to take up separately. And I am very concerned that you would conflate the two. If we're going to talk about the commercial services, that's one thing. If you're then going to conflate the review with the county and the county's cuts that may result in different kinds of service provision in the town or across the county, I am concerned at that conflation and what might get covered up in between a joint or amalgamated review of any kind. These two things need to be carefully thought through. My other question relates really to this whole process of consultation and how and where you came about it. I'm struggling to understand how you mooted in October something to our officers and 3 months later the entire bus network in Basingstoke changes. I just don't believe that process can be achieved in 3 months. How long before October did you actually begin to review the changing bus network in Basingstoke? And then from that point of that origin, how long did it take you to inform the council? You know, we're talking 3 or 4 months before October? How long before?
I honestly can't remember exactly when. As I said before, it was we have a constant review process, and we would have started to formulate our plans during the summer before, as Peter Smith has said, we started speaking to both Borough and County in October. And just to follow up on your other point, I wasn't suggesting that there should be some fudge between the commercial bus network and the supported one. What I was suggesting was that people don't like constant change, in my experience, and so it would be very silly, in my view, to do a review of the commercial bus network 1 month when there was going to be a review of the supported bus network either a month before or a month after, because I think that would undermine public confidence even further. So my point about working with the county and the borough was to try and coordinate change, not to fiddle it.
And my final question, Chair, is to our officer, if I could ask about a question to yourself, if that's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Can I just clarify, for members of the public, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, good evening, members of the public. My name's Lisa Kirkman and I'm the Head of Governance and Commissioning here at the Council with overall responsibility for the transport subsidies we make.
Can I ask you, you said in your response that you had a verbal communication in October, late October. Can you explain to me who that came from and then what you did with that, who you informed?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Harvey. We were desperately looking up the chain of communications that we had with Stagecoach. We have regular liaison meetings that involve both Stagecoach and Hampshire County Council. And it was the meeting on Monday, the 14th of October. There is a liaison meeting and amendments of the service was raised as an item, but there was no specific timetable detail at that time. And this is the first that officers here at Basingstoke and Dean knew of the changes. At that stage, Basingstoke officers urged for some consultation to take place, and Stagecoach agreed to do this on the options they had in South Ham area in late November, early December. On the 5th of November, there was a meeting with Stagecoach at Hampshire County Council around the changes, and that went into more route detail, but not the timetabling detail. Both Hampshire and Basingstoke confirmed they understood the changes to Stagecoach's commercial routes. And at this point, Hampshire County Council were going to try and cover a gap that was emerging from those changes, and that subsequently was the gap that was tendered as part of its current routes with Route 4, 11 and 12. On the 27th of November, we had the full detail from Stagecoach at a meeting that was both with our officers and Hampshire County Council again. Officers at that point contacted ward councillors in the South Ham area due to the impact we had identified in that area and the planned consultation. This actually went out in early December and culminated in a meeting with Councillors Regan and Keating at BDBC offices on the 12th of December with Stagecoach. On the 11th of December, Stagecoach attended the Over 55s Forum meeting. And that's the detail that we have of the chronology of events there. I hope it helps.
No, it does. Thank you. Can I just clarify then, in terms of you urging consultation in late November and then having no detail until the end of November, you're talking about the 27th of November getting the full detail. and Hampshire is going on about the tendered services. I mean, that's what I mean about the conflation. We've got a commercial change here that's affecting directly the tendering services, and we're having to plug the holes here. That's a concern, and that's something else to explore. We need to collect that point, Chair, and come back on that, I think, in terms of how the commercial services are having a direct impact on the county subsidies. In terms of the consultation, you contacted the Southam members, understandably, completely understandably. Did the borough officers make any attempt to contact any other members on any other routes that were affected?
Councillor Harvey, I can't give you the exact date, but there was a members' bulletin item about the changes, and I believe it to be early January that went out. But I can check that date if you wanted that confirmed 100%.
I would appreciate that, because I'm just conscious we're talking about all members being informed in January and the changes happening at the top of February. So most borough councillors would have less than 3 or 4 weeks to respond to the changes being made. At what point did you engage with county, and at what point did our Phoebe Bloom, the cabinet member, on the spot? And this is my last question, Chair. For what member did you actually inform the cabinet member? When was the cabinet member involved in all of this?
The portfolio holder is present at these liaison meetings. I cannot say if Councillor Osserton was present at those specific meetings.
So one of the questions we need to capture going forward, Chair, is obviously if the member was there, understandably so, but again, we've got this, our cabinet member being informed in October, and then there's, no, okay, so November?
Let us speak. Introduce Councillor Osserton, who is our cabinet member for partnerships, which I think emphasises what we're hoping to build with Stagecoach from this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say that I was not happy with the way that the ward councillors were consulted and for further consultation. I think we've got to go forward. We understand that, yes, consultation could have been better. I spoke to Mr. Dyer and had his assurance that if any more changes were to take place with buses in Basingstoke, he would come to the officers and to myself, and the appropriate ward councillors would be consulted, they would come in, and we would go forward from there, because it is important. And the relevant members of the public would also be advised, and we would go forward with consultation. To date, nothing has changed since then. We haven't changed any more of the bus services, but should it happen, then that is the way I would want it to go. Before we change anything, we have full consultation with the bus companies who I'm in partnership with, Hampshire County Council. We're also in partnership with the hospitals and with also our stakeholders out there. And then we will go forward with the buses, because it's important for every one of us as well. I happened to be there with Councillor Reagan and Councillor Keating, with Hampshire County Council, I believe Hampshire County Council was there as well, and with Mr. Dyer. And we discussed the situation, and we also discussed the way forward. What happened with the bus service from there, that was discussed with Mr. Dyer, and because of the commercial service, and with the 2 ward councillors. 2 other ward councillors from Oakley and from Hatch Warren were not happy with what went on with the consultation, and they were seen and spoken to by Mr. Dyer, and they were very happy. And their residents, if they had any concerns, they were addressed by Mr. Dyer and his customer services. Thank you.
Can I ask, Councillor, was it your understanding that when the Southam councillors were consulted, that it was a serious consultation and it could have been changed as a result of their comments?
What was discussed there was then up to Mr. Dyer with his service to go forward and change, if you so wished. We are not the bus company in Basingstoke. Thank you.
Since I asked a question, yes, but I have Councillor Keating down to speak yet anyway. Okay.
If I may, Chair, Mr. Dyer was not present when we met with Stagecoach. It was the other chappie next to him who was present. Mr. Dyer was not present. Mr. Dyer is the boss, and I think the other chappie reports to him. So I wouldn't wish to misrepresent Mr. Dyer's position. in any shape or form. So it's clear that he wasn't there when we were consulted, but it's also clear to us that we were being told, we weren't being asked to put forward changes. Thank you.
Yes, I apologise. It was Adam. Thank you. And Mr. Vince, I think you were there as well, the two.
That wasn't the contribution I wish to make. Can I make that contribution now?
I have a couple of other people who were ahead of you to speak again, so I'll ask Councillor Passy now.
Thank you, Chairman. As far as I know, I wasn't the councillor there to be consulted, and I don't know who my other colleagues were consulted. But as far as my patch are concerned, Hatchwarren and Beggarwood, we all know that there was a surgery, a doctor's surgery in Hatchwarren, and that was closed. And now what has happened, that number 8 and number 12 are not serving the people of my wards. And the thing is that what is happening is the people who are registered now with Southam surgery, who were originally for Hatchwarren surgery, now they have to travel from Hatchwarren into town, and then from town do a second visit to Southam, and then do the reverse. And that takes time, that takes money. And I've got a lot of vulnerable residents. I've got the students who want to go to Bicot. They have the same problem. I have got a lot of those people who have got such difficulty. Mrs. Ritchie actually eloquently presented what are those difficulties from Hatchwarren and Beggarwood. And that number 12 bus is said to be one of the buses that nobody really wants because it doesn't serve what the people need. It is there on an hourly basis, and I don't know who took that decision. I would like really to know from Mr. Dyer whether he did take into consideration about the hardship that people have to suffer, because the thing is that some of these routes are so badly designed that it is not serving the public at all, especially my people, my constituents in Hatchwarren and Beggarwood.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
I was just thinking about some consultation in reverse there as the council was speaking, because I don't think we were aware that doctors' surgeries were relocating. But I think the more general point is that the one I started with almost probably at the beginning, which is that the majority of people who use the buses in Basingstoke use them to get into the town centre. And I think Route 12 it obviously achieves that objective. I do accept that it may not serve some of the other objectives that the councillor has met. That route only exists because the county council stepped in to save it at quite short notice in this process. So it's the county council who have to be thanked for maintaining a route, and clearly its future lies in their hands, and we are very, very happy to provide data to them and discuss with them what would be the best way for that route to continue, if indeed it can.
Councillor Golding.
Thank you, Chair. As Oakley's been mentioned, I should just clarify that the meeting with my fellow councillor and the parish councillor took place after the changes had come into effect. As I indicated earlier, the members' bulletin, while indicating we were going to lose the number 8, gave us no clue that we were going to get such a circuitous circuit service in replacement. So it wasn't an issue for us until it had come into effect. But we were very grateful for the meeting when it did take place. I wanted to pick on 2 points raised either by visiting councillors or the members of the public, and invite Mr. Dyer to comment on them as it stands at the moment, and perhaps in the spirit of promoting public transport and working together to improve bus services, perhaps give us some hope that they might be reviewed in future. The first is the fact that a number of bus services no longer stop at the railway station, and that's particularly serious when they're heading home and when people have been shopping in the malls. Is there any chance that buses might once again go past the railway station and join up with those excellent trains from South West Trains? Precisely, you're very there. And the other point that was raised was the use of the National Express coach bay outside the bus station. I, from time to time, drop off a passenger for National Express coaches or collect a passenger from National Express coaches, and even without the addition of Stagecoach buses, it was an unsatisfactory facility because the cars dropping people off or picking them up had to share the coach lane with the coach, add buses as well. It's a bit of a nightmare. And yet right in behind there is a whole area that was a temporary bus station. And I just think is under Stagecoach's control. Possibly not. Well, perhaps you could at least explore whether that could be opened up and make a better facility for both the coaches and the buses, because it's just a waste of space at the moment.
Mr. Dyer?
Yes, the point about the bay out on Churchill Way there, when we were designing the new Chinham service, which we'd split from being a cross-town route to try and improve the punctuality of it, we were concerned that it was still quite tight for time, and therefore, if it did the loop into the bus station and back out again, then we might still have punctuality problems with it, and we would much prefer that route to be in the bus station, where it's closer to the control of the supervisory staff and obviously along with the other routes. We did it for punctuality reasons, and that is certainly one of the things that we will review as to whether our assumptions about punctuality have been turned out to be right, and whether we will be able to reinstate. The railway station issue, and I'm pleased that my colleagues at South West Trains are being seen to deliver good service. I think I worked for South West Trains myself in the late 1990s, and so I've paid a particular interest to the company, and I think they have made some really good steps forward in the last decade. I'm very impressed. Obviously, we hope that when the current franchise runs out in 2019, I think, that we continue to run it. There's probably a big difference between bus services and rail services. Not only is the structure different of franchising, but obviously we're in things for the very long term, where of course the railway companies tend to just run one franchise at a time. Sorry, I go off the tangent. The railway station. This is the point at which I could ask the members here for help. Because I mentioned earlier on that we've asked for many years whether Bowen County would consider a contraflow bus lane in New Street, which we think would speed services going up the Winchester Road and would also enable buses to serve the bus station and the railway station without going round and round in circles. The other thing in Basingstoke, which it won't surprise you to know causes us the most grief, is the Eastbrook roundabout. Because every bus has to negotiate it to get into the bus station, and then every bus has to negotiate it again to get out. We think that when the new John Lewis's store is built, traffic on Eastbrook roundabout is probably going to increase, and so if nothing is done, then our problems will probably get more difficult. And we really would urge you to look at how Eastbrook roundabout can be improved, and indeed whether the New Street bus lane concept could be reinvigorated. The feedback we get from our customers is that they like to be able to get off in the bus station and shop their way through town and get on at the railway station, or vice versa. And so without going round and round in circles, which we are in danger of doing at the moment, we would like to serve the railway station on as many journeys as we can. And indeed, some of the early morning journeys where we carry significant numbers of people to get on trains to commute to London, we try and make an effort to get as many of those up to the railway station, because at that time in the morning there are probably fewer people going to the bus station. So we are very aware of the issue, and we'd definitely like to work to improve that.
Final contribution on this section, Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Chair.
Sure, I had a question.
Can I?
No, after you.
Okay. Can I just add to the point you just made, Mr. Dyer? There's a huge doctor surgery served up by the bus station, by the railway station arrangement. And it went there deliberately because the buses went along there. Because people don't go by train to the doctors in a wrong basis, they go by bus. So that huge doctor surgery is a serious issue and a contributory factor which you should take into consideration. Can I just make the main point I wanted to make? You've effectively suggested in responses that the time to do a review is to coincide in timing terms with the introduction of the changes from Hampshire County Council. Is that effectively a commitment to have a review? That's the first question. And the second question associated with that is, if that's correct, you're prepared to have a review, how can we influence that review? Because there's a whole range of people that have been in touch with us, they've been in touch with you to some extent, and certainly a whole range of people who would wish to contribute to suggestions and propose solutions. Now, I don't know if you know Hampshire County Council, its arrangements and processes. They're currently consulting on changes, currently in the process of consulting, and that consultation is likely to end by the end of July. And it will go to the County Council, Cabinet and Council in September time for implementation, because it's money for implementation in the next financial year, which is April next year. But their intentions will be public, certainly in early autumn. If you're going to coincide with the introductions of their commitments, you would need to start the process relatively quickly, and because it will give us the opportunity then to feed into it. Is that something that we can work together to arrange?
Yes, I think the best conduit is through the borough and county officers. The other major factor for us is that people in this world get married, and then they do things, and then they have children, and the result of that, without being flippant, the result of that is we always see changes in demand at the beginning of each academic year as travel patterns change linked to the academic year. So in terms of what's happening on our commercial network, late September is always a good time to start a review like that, because we can then see what has happened with the new travel patterns for school and college students.
Just to confirm with you, are you saying you will have a review and we can contribute to it?
Yes.
Well, that's very helpful, because certainly our ability to contribute to the review is a significant factor from our point of view and for the public, because we will consult the public as to what they want, and we will help them. We won't do it for them or to them. We will help them to refine their requests to the point whereby we can put forward rational proposals to the discussion and to the review.
We would certainly welcome that discussion. It of course won't take away the difficult issue about, which I suspect will almost inevitably crop up, where somebody says the people in place X would really like a bus service, and we say, I'm very sorry, we just don't think that would be a commercial proposition for us, and that then immediately puts us into the discussion with the authorities about whether some sort of supported service might be viable or not. But we will happily join the dialogue.
And finally, if I may,
John, I was just going to say we can take that up a bit later after we've invited the county council reps to join in. Okay.
but finally, can I say, I'm not seeking to confuse the subsidies from Hampshire County Council with the commercial arrangements. But can I then interpret what you're saying is that we could have a constant dialogue rather than, us saying, oh, you never talked to us, you never told us, we didn't know. It would have a constant dialogue of a rational, organised way, would be substantially a substantial contribution to developing better relationships between you and us and the public, and you and the public.
Yes, I think we heard from the officers earlier on, didn't we, that we do have regular liaison meetings, and I'm sure that's the right mechanism to use for encouraging that dialogue.
And I say, other people have tried to catch my eye, but the next very interesting theme that was in the motion from Councillors Regan and Keating was promoting public transport, and I'd like to move on to that. Well, so a couple of others, I'm afraid. Well, if I allow you, I'll have to allow someone else as well. Go ahead.
Well, that's your decision, of course, as usual. But in regard to the liaison arrangements that operate, which we've heard something about, if I heard Mr. Dyer correctly, I mean, he seemed to be unaware of the changes that impacted upon Hatch Warren in regard to the close of the surgery there, doctor's surgery, and the creation of the merged arrangements in South Ham. Now, quite frankly, if there's ever been a doctor's surgery and medical centre that's taken longer to plan than that one, I'd have a job to find it in Basingstoke or anywhere else in the country, I think. And if that is really a statement from Stagecoach, we were unaware of that change taking place and the impact it would have on Hatch Warren residents in the way the council party has alluded to. I'm astounded. It says little, in my view, about our liaison arrangements if that's the best we can do.
Yes, well, Mr. Dyer did refer to a counter consultation, and I think that's where we should be going. Now, I wouldn't let Councillor Cubitt come back, but I think I'm bound to now.
All I'll say is thank you very much, Mr. Dyer. You are a commercial organisation, and I think the chair's correct that the bulk of the debate that's to be had here is probably in relation to the 15% subsidised routes, and whether the public knows of the amendments that took place to the routes that happened actually were amendments to routes that related to the 15% subsidised route, or related to the hours after which we subsidise and Stagecoach don't operate. So thank you very much, Mr. Dyer, but I think that's probably where the more interesting aspect of this debate is going to go forward. And thanks for your time, Mr.
I think you misquoted me. I was citing the 400,000 subsidy as grounds for us to build a closer partnership. The officers who've been sitting there patiently for some time, Lisa and Peter, we're going to move on to talk about promoting public transport. Would you like the option to contribute to that if it arises? Otherwise, feel free to take your seats.
Chair, we'll happily sit in our seats there, and if you want to call us up to the table to answer any questions, we'd be happy to do so.
Okay, thanks for coming forward to help. Now, will Councillor Regan or Councillor Keating like to lead on the issue of promoting public transport? And try to keep yourself to that, please.
Still trying to write my speeches for me, will you? Well, you're interfering. You aggravate the situation, there's no aggravation, all right? So, no, put me off my stomach there. No, the thing about the discussion between Councillor Keating and Mr. Dyer was very interesting. That you said reviewed in September, but we must. The separation is quite important between the commercial services and what's subsidised, because what any company won't run as commercial, Stagecoach and Bainstoke, the subsidy has to come in from the local authority. I mean, in Bainstoke here we do quite a bit. So, but I think you will admit, I think the changes coming February 16 was a PR disaster. So one of the things you must do is promote your services. And what's coming in the 1st of August is when the changes, the evening services subsidised by the borough. Then obviously that's an idea of a partnership it's a true partnership between the borough, the county and Stagecoach to promote these services. So, but I will say this. I mean, I always say this, 'cause I used to be a driver. I used to drive a car once, but I had to give up driving for health reasons, and now I come relying on the buses. I used to use buses before, but for the last 20 years, I use buses. But I always say, I said this 10 years ago, and I say it now, no one in Bainstoke in their right mind is going to get out of their car and use the bus service as an alternative, because the bus service is just not comprehensive enough. Until we get a comprehensive service, like if you go back to my own ward, Southam, I will keep on about it, because a great chunk of the thousands of people have not got a bus service there who had one 50 years. It was taken away just like that, and there was no consultation. It was imposed upon them. I mean, you've got the faster number 3 route, the one that does not stop at the railway station on the way back when people got their shopping. I will say that again. I said, until you take note of those sort of things, people are not going to get their cars and use buses. It's the last desperate resort. So we've got to promote buses as a green alternative to the car. Until we do that, we're always going to be going around in circles.
Thank you, Chair. I drive a car, I don't use buses, and I have no way of knowing, because I'm not a business person, how to promote bus activity. I'm sure you, Mr. Dyer, and your colleagues are much more expert in determining how to promote bus use. What I can say is borough councillors, not just from Southampton, but around the borough, we're very much in touch with our electorate. And many of the people here tonight have expressed views which we have heard repeated more than once, certainly during election periods. In Basingstoke, we're in permanent election period, because there's elections every year, and the 1 year out of 4 when there is no borough elections, it's the county council election. So Basingstoke is permanently in election mode. So we're permanently talking to the electorate. If you can identify for us a number of key issues that would help to promote bus usage or increase bus usage, you would be the expert in doing that, and we would be able to work with you to increase bus usage, because it's in our interest, as well as the public's, that buses are more frequent, more reliable, and fuller, because if you fill buses, you have less cars. I don't know the answer. Hopefully you may be able to contribute to it.
Perhaps I could take the role of a board councillor here for a moment. For a long time, I've fiercely defended services that are subsidised in the evenings and on Sundays by this council. And I say, why doesn't the Borough Council promote these services? And the answer I get is that the obligation is on the operator to promote the service. Well, of course, it's the same service that operates commercially on weekdays, and I don't see any evidence of those services being promoted. And it's amazing that some people are surprised to learn that they can use a bus that would take them somewhere and bring them back somewhere desirable. I don't see any evidence of Stagecoach promoting use of buses at all. Mr. Dyer.
We've used a whole range of methods to promote, and I guess things are changing quite a lot actually, because the traditional timetable leaflet is being used a lot less. It's obviously very, very valuable to people who don't go on the internet, but we're seeing more and more of our customers contacting us electronically, and that's obviously a good method for us to use to promote. So I think we would see that we would continue to do our sort of paper-based promotion with things like house-to-house leaflet deliveries, which we do from time to time. And of course, as you quite rightly say, in most places, the route that the buses go in the evening is the same as the one that the route goes during the day. So we publicise a particular route for the whole timetable. There is no separate promotion for an evening or Sunday timetable. Stagecoach is actually doing a big project across the UK now on digital communication and promotion of bus services, because we see that as the way forward, not for everybody, of course, but particularly for a lot of our younger users. We see an awful lot of benefit in being able to communicate with people that way. We started a trial last year with Twitter in Winchester, and that has just gone county-wide in the last few weeks, to encourage customer feedback and also communication. And that has been very, very well received. We post service updates from 6:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock every night, so that people who sign up, if a road's closed or a bus is cancelled, we're feeding those service updates, and we're also answering customer queries. But of course what that does is build us up a database of followers, where if we then want to use that for promotional messages to say we're going to do a special offer with a £2 fare on Sunday, or the timetables are changing on the 1st of June, or whatever it is, we're building up a database of users that we can communicate with much more effectively. And I see digital communication as being much more widely used in the future, but that doesn't say we should abandon the old methods. So I think we're better than we were, and I'm not saying for one moment that we're perfect. And the challenge that quite rightly some of the councillors have raised is how do we communicate with non-users, because there will always be some people who wouldn't be seen dead on a bus, but there are quite a lot of people who are persuadable, and we need to find more effective ways of communicating with them, I'm sure. And we do, particularly in the rural areas, we work quite closely with quite a few parish councils who will put information through parish newsletters and that sort of thing. And if people would like a contribution from us to ward newsletters or parish newsletters, then we'll always very happily do that.
Anybody else like to contribute on this subject? I'm told we've got Councillor Golding already.
Thank you. I speak as an occasional bus user, and one of the things that I find off-putting is not knowing how reliable the timetable is, so that when I want to catch a bus, I always arrive at least 10 minutes before I think the bus is due, and then when it's 10 minutes late, I feel I've wasted 20 minutes, and it puts me off doing it again. And I remember, this may be a matter for Hampshire, I hope Hampshire's listening as well, rather than Stagecoach, but I remember being in meetings about 3 or 4 years ago involving Stagecoach in Hampshire, where I think we were talking about real-time information and actually people being able to know where the bus is on its route, how far away it is. Now, maybe that never went anywhere, and maybe it's too expensive to do it on bus stops, but at least for the people, and it's not only the young, some of the old are very familiar with using apps on their iPhones and things. If we actually had an app that told you where the bus was so that you arrived just before it did and not 10 minutes before or 20 minutes before, that actually would promote bus usage. So is there any hope of getting that in the foreseeable future around here?
Yes. We're currently working on an automatic vehicle location system for every bus, which not only tells us where every bus is, but also transmits data to the county council real-time information system. So we're working very closely with Hampshire on this. And as you quite rightly say, some of the original schemes, like a project which had the lovely name of Romance in Southampton a few years ago, and please don't ask me to remember what the initials stood for, but the main way of communication was with signs at bus stops, and they are hugely expensive for the local authority, be that county or district, to provide. And technology does come to our rescue here for all those with smartphones and indeed mobiles, where you can text a stop number. Every bus stop now has a stop number on it, and so whether it's by mobile internet or by text, we'll be able to deliver details of when the next buses are coming to those stops, or indeed you can look at a timetable online. So I think in the next year things will be a lot better.
To clarify, you're saying that's not quite here yet, not that it is here and I've just missed it.
Yes, that's right. You haven't missed it, but it's on its way.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take the conversation back. You talk about promoting bus services. Can we just get our heads around what we're actually dealing with in the town, the reality of what people are facing? Because I think, to take it back to the top of this evening, when we listen to all those residents' concerns, we have a situation here, don't we, where we have a bus company, the bus company, because there isn't anybody else. You are the only show in town. And you are very able, as you have done in the past, to make sure that you are the only show in town. Because when anybody else has ever challenged or tried to challenge or competed against you, because of your strength, you've managed to effectively push them off the road. That's the blunt truth of the matter. Your chief executive says we've met our expectations for this year when you make £147 million in profit as a company, just this year. There is no financial reason for cutting the buses in the way, and changing the routes in the way you did, and I don't remotely disagree with that argument. When we talk about the buses, from the residents' views and from everything we've heard, Chair, the reality is that our bus service is not fit for purpose. It does not fit what people want, need, or expect. And you can sit behind the commercial veneer, and you can sit here as a private company, and you have every right to. And I totally understand the robust ways in which you've answered the questions this evening. But the truth is, you gave a very telling statement when you said that you wanted to get more commuters to the train station. You wanted to get more people to be able to access South West Trains, which happens to be your partner company, your sister company. The truth of the matter is, yes, of course we want commuters to get to London, to Reading, to Southampton. We also want local people to be able to get to their local jobs in their local companies and local employers. And that's a massive issue. We want students to be able to get to their local schools and their local education. We want people to be able to get to their GPs and their health and the hospital and so on. And the reality is that what you've heard tonight, and you'll come back with your answer, I'm absolutely sure you will, and you'll justify it. But if you're truly listening, and I don't know whether you are, if you're truly listening, you can't escape what the residents are genuinely telling you. And I really do test you on that. Are you genuinely listening to what you're being told? And when we talk about promoting bus services, Chair, we need to turn our fire a little bit here on the county, because they've been silent so far, for we've not been brought into the debate. So let's just talk about the options that are on the table from county in terms of their £1.5 million cut they're proposing in this consultation. To reduce or cease support for Sunday services, to reduce services completely after 7 p.m, to cease 9 a.m. early start for older persons bus passes, or reduce the frequency of some services full stop, or replace some services with taxi shares and community transport services, or reduce information available to residents. We've already got a problem with Stagecoach. God help us when the county cuts come through in terms of promoting public transport. We have a public transport crisis in this town if we don't address it properly. The question is, Chair, you want to promote public transport. Can we get some competition in? Is it possible for the public authorities to work with other bus operators to incentivise our current monopoly by having some competition on our bus routes to give the residents a better product? Because we're not getting it from Stagecoach.
Councillor, I'll ask...
And may I ask the County Council to respond in terms of how they feel they are promoting bus services when the only list for consultation is cut, removing services, taking away things that residents have currently got. How is that promoting public transport in our town?
I'll ask the county to respond when we've finished with speakers of the members of the committee who want to talk on this topic, and I have Councillor Cubitt.
I have to say I completely agree that I'd like to hear what Hampshire County Council's got to say, because when you separate the 85% from the 15% of the changes that were made on February the 16th to the routes, the changes that the public have referred to, are those changes in reference to amendments that have happened as a result of Hampshire County Council? Because it sounds like it is, because I understand from the officers that the 15% subsidies in part relate to after hours, Sunday service, public holiday service. And that's why my last comment, Chair, to Mr. Dyer is that whilst I'm sure Stagecoach is doing a wonderful job, actually it sounds to me, I don't come from the centre of town, as if most of the narrative actually relates to what is being negotiated by the portfolio holder in Basingstoke-and-Deane Borough Council, because she told us at the last meeting that that they were very happy with the bus services in Basingstoke-and-Deane, and what it is in fact that Hampshire County Council is doing on our residents' behalf with regards to all of these issues, because it doesn't sound to me as if it's Stagecoach issues. It sounds to me as if it's the subsidy routes that are the issue. And do any of us as councillors know, when we're debating the amendments that were made on the February the 16th, which of those amendments related to the 15% and which related to the 85%?
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Ossington to speak.
Could I just say, I did not say that I was happy with what was happening with the bus service in Basingstoke at all. I have a very good, yes, I have a good relationship with partnership. We're in partnership with them, and I wish to continue with that partnership. We're also in partnership with Hampshire County Council and, as I said, the hospital and the Borough Council, the four of us together. And we do discuss things that are going on. And many of the things that are being said here tonight have also been discussed at these meetings, of which we have minutes.
Back, please. They might have been discussed, but it doesn't sound like the views of the residents have been reflected to the partners who we work with. Because very definitely the Scrutiny Committee meeting that I attended 3 weeks ago, I'm afraid the portfolio holder seemed to imply that the relationship with the partners was a flourishing and a successful one. And all I'm saying is that as a councillor from outside of town and hearing the views of the residents, it sounds like there are some very severe issues at play now. And I feel very sorry for Mr. Dyer if he wasn't advised, or his company wasn't advised, about the closure of the doctor's surgery, or the removal of that, because that's absolutely an indication that this flourishing partnership is not as flourishing as it seems to be. And it sounds like there's some serious conversations that are not happening, or if they are happening, they're not reflecting the mood of the residents.
Mr. Dyer.
I think the very long established partnership arrangements between various bus operators, not just Stagecoach, and borough and county councils across Hampshire, is generally conducted on a very sensible, cordial and professional basis. That's not to mean, doesn't mean to say we agree with each other all the time, of course we don't. And it's not to say that if I had been more aware that a doctor's surgery had moved, that I'd promised to have changed all the bus network around it. I think Councillor Harvey made some quite sort of emotive comments about a bus service in crisis. And I think perhaps we just need to put it in context a little bit. If you went to another town of a similar size to Basingstoke elsewhere in the UK, I think you would come back and say that the public transport offering in Basingstoke is every bit as good as in those other towns, because every town has the same issues in that the majority of people want to go direct from the suburbs to the town centres, that the more complex journey requirements, which can be very, very important and very, very socially necessary, are smaller in number and therefore are more difficult to provide. And it's those that create the pressures on operators and local authorities in partnership to deliver. We carry millions of passenger journeys a year, and I think the majority, all the survey work that has been done, and I'm trying to think when the last one in Hampshire was, suggests that over 90% of our customers are satisfied with the service they receive. I'm not saying we're perfect, we know we're not perfect. But I don't think it's fair to suggest that the Basingstoke bus network is in crisis. There are a number of people who've been adversely affected by the changes that have been made. There are others who've seen a more frequent service or a more direct service who are probably very happy. The way of the world is, of course, they won't be deluging either the local authority or us with comments to that effect. So I think the partnership is positive. We don't stick our heads in the sand when problems arise, but we are honest and say we're not perfect.
Now, I think, I'm sure members are going to have more to say once we've heard from the County Council, but before we do that, I'm going to ask Councillor Patty, who's been waiting.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, when we saying about promotion of the bus service, one of the biggest problems that I see is connectivity, which is partly there, but which is greatly in deficit. We have for one, when Festival Place was being built, I did suggest that the bus service bus station be located with the railway station and the taxi service at that time, but it was found that it is not really practical and it cannot be done. But even now, when we have got the bus station where some of the buses could remain there, but some of the buses can be relocated up to the railway station because there are space there that it can be used for the buses. The next thing is to look at is dedicated bus route. If we're going to improve, like Mr. Dyer said, that there are like buses can run much easily and be more frequent if we have got the buses running smoothly around, and it can be looked at, but nobody is looking at these things. So how can we really help? Because we need to help what the resident needs, and also your profitability, Mr. Dyer. And when I said about handout grabbing, I said perception. I didn't say that you are doing it. I just said that's the perception among the public that is there. But the thing is that we do need to move on. We cannot really stay static now because there are problems. Here it is highlighted. What can we do about this? This is what we need to look at, that how can we really make some progress at what the problems are. And this is what I'm looking at.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I think we are going to talk about how we can move forward, but in cooperation. And to begin with, I'd like to hear from County Councillor Sean Woodward and his colleague if he wants to speak. You've heard everything that's gone on so far, and we're asking you to help us with the consideration of how, in partnership, we can all improve things.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Yes, I'm Sean Woodward. My portfolio at Hampshire County Council is economy, transport and environment. I'm sure you'll see how those fit together. And my colleague with me is Peter Shelley, and he's the officer who really does all the work. So if there are any detailed questions that come out, I'm sure you'll excuse me if I might need to consult him on some of them. Anyway, firstly, what I'd like to do, Chairman, if I may, is to establish or to acknowledge the long-established partnership between Hampshire County Council and Basingstoke and Deane Borough Council. And I'm really pleased where partners are able to fund additional services over and above those which the County Council can provide. And I understand that the decision for the borough to fund evening and Sunday services followed discussions between our two authorities in 2011. And that consultation, as part of the bus subsidy review, caused us as Hampshire County Council to prioritise funding on weekday daytime journeys, as these best, we felt, meet the needs such as doctor's appointments, food shopping, etc. I understand that this evening's meeting has been arranged in part, or perhaps in main, due to the changes that Stagecoach made to its commercial bus network earlier this year. And it's good to see that we have representatives from Stagecoach here this evening. But I must point out that 7 out of 8 bus journeys in Hampshire are made on commercial bus services. And this is similar across the country outside London. In Basingstoke, from the County Council's point of view, we pay for 2 hourly bus services. In fact, since February, that's 3. And the other services are commercial. And that includes 7 services which run every 15 minutes or better, which is a level of service which compares favourably with many towns of similar size. And these journeys are paid for by passenger fares, and routes change according to how well they're used, and commercial services are not funded by or nor are they under the control of Hampshire County Council. And that's the law. We've heard it earlier. The 1985 Transport Act said that bus companies cannot run at a loss, and nor can any individual service run at a loss. And I do recall that I was asked to step in at short notice to fund an extra bus service at a cost of £40,000 as a result of these changes, to prevent several parts of Basingstoke being left without any bus service at all. And so I've got a particular interest in this evening's meeting, though I have to admit that similar things have happened elsewhere in the county in recent months. Stagecoach is the largest provider of subsidised bus contracts to Hampshire County Council due to the areas that they cover, but our spend with Stagecoach has actually reduced since 2011, and our contracts are open to competitive tender, and indeed all commercial bus routes are open to competition. It doesn't have to be Stagecoach that does everything. There's nothing stopping another commercial bus operator coming into Basingstoke, even following the buses around and offering another service. So that can happen in other parts of the county. First and Go South Coast, perhaps better known as Wilts and Dorset and Blue Star, hold similarly prominent positions. And I think also I probably need to dispel any idea that Hampshire County Council cuts funding for passenger transport year on year, or that Basingstoke isn't properly supported by the county. And in fact, apart from the years where the government has taken away funding from the council, such as in 2011, when rural bus subsidy grant was scrapped nationally, county council funding for passenger transport has held steady or increased every year for the last 10 years. and Hampshire County Council now spends some £20 million a year on public and community transport, and that includes concessionary travel. And in Basingstoke, apart from the welcome funding from yourselves, from the Borough Council, Hampshire spends around £2.5 million a year here in Basingstoke on public and community transport. And both councils have, excuse me, as Councillor Russellton said, a long-standing quality bus partnership with Stagecoach, which benefits from a share of the £5 million investment by the County Council between 2001 and 2011, in which the councils improved bus stop access, waiting areas, upgraded bus stops, provided real-time information services, which are now being updated due to a successful bid for government funding. And for their part, I think it must be said, Stagecoach has increased frequencies and brought to Basingstoke some of the new low-floor, easy-access buses in Hampshire, some of the first buses of that quality that we've seen in Hampshire. And the result was increased passengers, so Basingstoke is now one of the top 10 towns in England for passenger growth. And finally, as you know, Hampshire County Council, in fact I need to correct my colleague along the way here, has completed its 13-week consultation. That actually ran until the end of May, and that is part of a review of spending on bus and community transport, and that follows a £93 million reduction in government funding to Hampshire County Council. And it's going to involve difficult decisions, but I think we start from a very good position because bus use in Hampshire is now at 31.5 million journeys per year, which is close to a 20-year high, and it's been rising year on year when neighbouring counties in England as a whole outside London have seen falling numbers. We've got a vibrant commercial bus sector. It's invested in some 60 new buses at a total of £12 million in the last year, and we've seen the community transport sector amongst shire authorities, which last year carried 500,000 passenger trips. And our biggest funding that we give to community transport is the Basingstoke Dial-A-Ride. And as partners, counties, districts and operators working together, we have won millions of pounds from government for funding public transport, such as the real-time information systems I mentioned. But clearly, and the reason we're sat here this evening is, all is not as it should be here. And that's why I think it's good that this meeting is happening. I'm very impressed with some of the incisive questioning that members have made, and indeed some of the answers that we've heard this evening. But I think as partners we do have a good proven track record in working together to achieve good results. So I am grateful for the invitation to be here this evening. I do look forward to working with members here. And finally, just for information, the decision I'll be making on bus subsidies is going to be on the 27th of October. Thank you, Chairman.
Does Mr. Shelley want to add anything? The movers of the motion are inviting. Well, Councillor James, followed by Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you, and good evening. You'll need to explain to me why the County Council are so involved in Basingstoke bus services. Only because in terms of the setting them up, I mean, I know nothing about Fareham Salisbury, which is, I think, your division. I've never been there, and clearly you probably don't come to Basingstoke very often. I get why County would be very involved in the Farnborough to Fleet and to Hook, but actually within the small pockets of the actual Basingstoke routes, why are County even involved? Why is that not all just devolved down to the borough to work with the partnership and get those things sorted, and only involve you in, I think Councillor Waldridge mentioned, a new bus stop in Sullivan Road, but no crossing point. That's when we should be contacting highways to say, we're changing the bus routes, can we have a crossing point ready for that? Other than that, why are you in there?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm intrigued at the question, and if I'm being told by Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council that you no longer require us to be here subsidising any services in Basingstoke or becoming involved, then I'd be very happy. But I don't think that's probably what the councillor is getting at. We become involved only in bus services which are deemed to be socially necessary, i.e. the ones that, for whatever reason, well, probably because they're loss making, the bus operators have given up on, or some element of that service, and our involvement is to, in the same way that Basingstoke, as a most enlightened council, is doing the same, is to put subsidy into those socially necessary, or deemed to be socially necessary services, so we can keep them running, such as the example I gave earlier of having to step in. It very possibly would, Chairman.
A point of clarification. Obviously, we're delighted that the money you raise off the residents of this borough in taxes, you're spending on us. I think that's marvellous. But I just don't quite get why we as a borough are not having a bigger role in shaping the bus services we receive. I fully accept the fact that you subsidise, thanks to the contributions from this borough and the borough's residents. It's not your money, it's our money that we give to you to spend on us. But I just want to clarify why you seem to make, or it appears that the county have a lot of sway in the decisions around, you know, the extra service, the service where I think it was Shepherd Road, it was missed. So the new service was added in because we'd forgotten Shepherd Road was there. That kind of thing, would it have happened had it been the borough working closer with Stagecoach on the new routes rather than the county?
Thank you, Chairman. It is, as I think has been highlighted, a partnership. You know, Basingstoke can step up. In fact, it's stepping up more than I think any other borough in Hampshire in terms of supporting subsidising bus services. And I'm sure that Stagecoach and any other operator that might want to come into Basingstoke will be more than happy to work with Basingstoke Borough Council, either solely or majorly. You know, the officers I work with have the entire county of Hampshire to deal with in respect to public transport, but only in terms of that one journey in 8 which needs to be subsidised for some reason. So I have no issues at all, Chairman, with Basingstoke taking a bigger role in dealing with bus companies and talking about services. The county doesn't have the monopoly, but last time I looked, Basingstoke is in the county of Hampshire, and therefore council tax which is raised, admittedly collected by Basingstoke, I think you find majorly goes to Hampshire County Council.
Chairman, I'm not sure if we have standing orders, but one standing order for finishing the meeting.
Yes, can I ask members to agree that we suspend the procedure rule that limits the length of the meeting? Did Councillor James want to come back on that?
I think he's accepted the point that we as a borough have an opportunity, and this is why I wanted to clarify that we as a borough have an opportunity to shape certainly the subsidised service, not free of county interference, because I appreciate we've collected the money and given it to them, and then they've got to give it to us to spend it. But I just want us to know that we've got a very key role in shaping the service, and it's not all done on a desktop in Winchester, because that's how we end up with things being missed.
Thank you, Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you. I've got 4 questions of Councillor Woodward. How much of the increase in buses, because you refer to the fact that we had experienced a really positive increase in transport usage in Basingstoke in the last 10 years, how much of that increase was due to residents enjoying the service or an increase in population?
I'm not sure that I can actually answer that question, Chairman. All I do know is that over the last number of years, buses have been used intensely more because many people are travelling by bus free of charge to them with concessionary passes. And even though we were told as a local authority when we picked up from all the districts, of course, the responsibility for the concessionary fare service, that it would be entirely paid for, we're now putting £12 million a year into covering that service. But I'm afraid I can't say whether it is your population growth or the love of travelling by bus that has caused people to travel more by bus. But you do have a real success story in Basingstoke in terms of bus patronage.
Councillor Cupid?
Okay, thank you. I mean, we have witnessed a 16% increase in population. So I just, in terms of statistics and the implications of them, I was being a little mean to you because you come from Fareham, but we have seen a dramatic increase in our population. The second question relates to the £400,000 subsidy that we agreed back in 2011. Now, you mentioned that the amount of subsidy that Hampshire County Council has given to the bus routes in our borough has remained unchanged and has not gone down. And I just wondered whether you factored in that 400,000, whether it's been double counted, or whether that 400,000 you're using as a plug to demonstrate that it hasn't gone down.
Just trying to understand that question entirely. But what I said was that when we lost the rural bus subsidy grant, then we did see a drop in funding. But apart from that effect, that we'd only seen it stay the same or rise over the last decade. But maybe Peter Shelley might be able to clarify slightly more for me, as he's got the total figures. Okay, Peter.
The red light of success, thank you. No, Councillor, the answer that Councillor Woodward gave was about county spending. The district the district spending is separate to that, so it's our funding, Hampshire's funding, which has stayed or gone up. And indeed, like in February this year when we stepped in, or Councillor Woodward approved the funding for the 12 route, that was new money from the county. So no, there isn't double counting.
And then, thank you, and that's a good clarification. And final question is that Mr. Dyer said that we have a better bus route than many comparable towns in the country, and I think he cited us as being in the top 10, or it might have been Councillor Woodward. But I just wondered, are there any other councillors of comparison to us that subsidise the 15% to the tune of 400,000 per annum?
I think, as I said earlier, Chairman, Basingstoke is head and shoulders above the other districts in Hampshire. Eastleigh provides some subsidy to bus services. Most districts actually do subsidise community transport, and tend to go evens with the county council. But in terms of a borough, and I realise obviously what a successful and wealthy borough you're in here in Basingstoke, but you provide more bus subsidy than any other borough in Hampshire to support buses.
Mr. Dyer, do you want to come back on any of these points?
Just a couple of observations, if I may. I think I'm right in saying, if my memory of the 1985 Act is good enough, just in answer to Councillor James's point, that the county council, even if it wanted to hand everything over to Basingstoke and Dean, couldn't, because where a situation arises where no bus operator is prepared to run a bus service commercially, it is the county that has the legal duty to consider social need, and they're not, even if they wanted to, I don't think they're able to wash their hands of it. The other comment, just about passenger numbers, and I can get some figures for you and give to Peter Smith to circulate to members if that would be useful. Obviously, there was, when the free concessionary scheme for over 60s and disabled was introduced in April 2006, not surprisingly, that produced a big increase in passenger journeys amongst that section of the population. But it is absolutely true to say that adult passenger growth over the last 10 years has been significant in Basingstoke. It's not just the effect of free concessions. Oh, no, the other comment was nothing to do with that. It was about double deckers, which I've forgotten to mention earlier, which I will later.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just be absolutely clear what we're talking about here in terms of Basingstoke supported services? As I understand it, there are 18 subsidised services in Basingstoke. The number 14 that goes between Lichpitchinham and Tadley, the 656 to Chinham, Old Basing and Costello, the 55 Newbury to District, Newbury and District bus, the 74 Overton service, the 21, 22, 23 and 24 Newbury, Etchingswell and Burghclere, the Cango bus that connects to Alresford, the number 1 in Brighton Hill to the town centre, the 2 in Broadhurst to the town centre, the number 3 in Southam to the town centre, the number 4 in Lichpit to the Southam, number 5 from West Popley to the town centre, the number 6 from Winklebury to East Popley, the number 7 from Chinham to the town centre, the number 8 from Kentshott Park to the town centre, the number 11 from Oakley to Basingstoke, the number 12 from Hatchwarren to Basingstoke, and the number 14 from Tadley to Southview, let alone the number 676 from Overton to Whitchurch. Oh my God, what a list. And that's kind of my point. I think the issue we have here in Basingstoke, and I'd like to understand this because you're right what you say, Councillor. The County Council, obviously as the Transport Authority, makes a significant contribution, but you're going to reduce that significantly with the decision you're going to take in October 27th. And I would challenge you, and I'd be surprised, I'd be shocked if you told me on October the 27th you weren't going to make a cut of between 1.25 and 1.5 million from the budget. If you didn't do that, I would be absolutely shocked, but I'm confident you will. So in that sense, the question then begs, we put our 400 grand in, you put your money in, and we wind up with 18 services, 18 across the borough that are being subsidised because they obviously meet and have social need requirements. Stagecoach, I believe, don't accept that social responsibility. You've given me no confidence that you accept a social responsibility this evening. What you're suggesting in terms of the county's role in supporting that social need is one thing. My question begs, and again I'll ask it, let's go back to the list of services that you're looking to change and cut. How does stopping all services in Basingstoke that you subsidise after 7 o'clock in any way contribute to social need? How does taking the older person's bus pass away from them after 9 o'clock in the way that's described in the consultation paper improve the social need in Basingstoke? How in the world does stopping Sunday services? Do you understand, I think, and I have to ask you the question from a social point of view, do you appreciate the impact that your decision on the 27th of October is going to have if you follow through on the things that you've advertised and suggested you may have to in that consultation document? Because they ain't going to pick the tab up. They're going to do nothing to make up that difference. You're left holding this, and if you don't, where do our residents go? Because we're not going to be able to find that money. £400,000 is a huge amount for a borough council to be putting in the first place. You're the Transport Authority. We're 12% of your county. What are you going to do to bridge that difference? And can you give me an assurance that you won't make that decision to cut the 1.25 million or 1.5 million from your budget on the 27th of October?
Would you like to come back?
Yes, and I'm more than happy to confirm that those savings will need to be made. And if you, and you've suffered this as an authority as well, if you lose half of your income from government, and I think this would be the same for any individual who loses half their income, they have to make savings. And those savings are potentially going to be very difficult to make. Basingstoke, as a borough, is obviously making contributions towards the bus subsidy. I'm going to be looking at a whole load of options. It would be a most invidious consultation to say, oh, we've got to make savings, we've got no idea how they may possibly be made. So clearly ideas have been put on the table as to how it can be done. We know what we can't touch. I said earlier, we've got something like £20 million going out in terms of public transport subsidy in Hampshire, but 12 million of it is tied up in concessionary travel. So we can't touch that because that's fixed. The only bit we can look at around the concessionary travel is what is the statutory requirement for concessionary travel. That is a 9:30 service. So it may be, and I can't tell you what decision I will be making, and it would hardly be reasonable if I could, because I honestly don't know yet. But I don't, otherwise I would say so. So I do not know yet what the decision will be. I don't know what the officer's recommendation will be. What I do know is we've had an unprecedented level of interest and response. Something like 3,000 letters have come in from residents of the county. So clearly there's something, Chairman, that they find extremely important, that they want us to be very careful in terms of the decision that we make. The national scheme for concessionary travel requires a 9:30 start, but what I will say is that if we do go, and I do make a decision to revert to the statutory scheme with a 9:30 start. If there are services in Basingstoke where to be able to have a 9 o'clock start, and if you can't use your free pass then it is going to be hours before you can use it again, then I will make an exception for that service in Basingstoke to be able to ensure that people are not losing out. So, you know, it's not going to be absolute, but those savings must be found. There may be more innovative ways in which we can provide community travel, and I know sometimes people talk rather sneeringly of taxi share or dial a ride, but the fact is 500,000 journeys in this county are taking place using community transport, and if there are very small numbers of people that want to travel but they will be absolutely isolated if they can't, then what on earth is wrong with using a taxi pre-booked to be able to do it? And I think there may be innovations that we can look at, and certainly I've asked my officers to look at those, so that yes, we will make savings, but we will protect those who are most vulnerable. If we need to tweak what we're doing, we will do it to achieve that. But we've lost £93 million. The savings will be made.
Totally appreciate that. That's 93 million out of a 1.75 billion pound budget. I understand that. I also understand the context, and I'm not meaning as a facetious comment, I'm just merely making the comments. Factually, that's also the fact that between 2011 and this year, you've doubled the reserves from 212 million to 419 million pounds. So it's all about choice and where you choose to invest. So the question I really want to find out and drive at is obviously in terms of the total cost that Hampshire County Council are paying for all bus services and operators in Basingstoke's, you know, the tender area. That's over 800 million, 900,000 pounds in our area. That includes the £400,000 that we're putting in. And that's an interesting split, isn't it? I'd like to know out of the 1.25 million and 1.5 million cut that you're likely to make, or you may make, I appreciate what you said, you're likely to make in my language, what impact is that going to have in Basingstoke? What is the cut going to be to our area? Forgive me for being parochial for a moment about our borough, but what cut is that going to hit on us? And again, I ask you, have you and will you consider the social consequences of that? Because the very example that you've given is an issue for many residents getting to the hospital for morning appointments, for many residents getting to their GPs for appointments as well, let alone actually getting to a GP in the first place. In the context of all of that, there are huge consequences, social consequences of your decision. I'd like to be reassured that you will address those clearly and directly. If we lose our services, for example, in the evenings, that you will justify to the residents of Basingstoke, because I don't think you can, why we haven't got a bus service after 7 o'clock.
As I say, Chairman, if we lived in a world where money was flowing, like a land of milk and honey, which perhaps used to be the case several years ago when loads and loads of money was pumped in, which probably put the country into the situation it's now in having to... Yes, Chairman, there was a government, if people have forgotten all about it, so be it, which spent enormous amounts of money, our money, and now we're reaping the reward, and that's why local government has seen, that is why local government will have seen 50% of its government support gone over the 5 years of this Parliament. Whether you think that's right or wrong is obviously a matter for you, but local government has borne the brunt of public sector savings. We need to make these savings, and we're hardly going to start spending capital resources on revenue schemes such as running buses, because once capital is gone, it's gone. We need to have a sustainable support system for buses, and we need to make sure that we make, or I make in this case, the right decisions. And yes, all of the points that the councillor makes are all appropriate, and they will all need to be taken into account. But if it is a choice between an evening service or a daytime service, and if it does have to be a choice, then the points the councillor makes are correct, that people want to be able to get to their doctor's appointments, they want to go and do their shopping, and neither of those things tend to be a perhaps after 7 o'clock in the evening activity. There is a very limited amount of money available. Some of it will be saved. Other elements of it, perhaps we'll just need to use it more innovatively, as I said earlier.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Patty.
Chair, can I ask you to capture something on the basis of what's been said for our future discussion and where we go on this? And that's very important. I think your loads and loads of money analogy, brings up the idea of, Harry Enfield and his loads of money 1980s thing is not there, is it, in terms of where this bus originally comes from, and legislation in 85. Can I just say, look, let's just get this clear. If you're talking about this, then we need as a borough to understand the economic impact. If we are going to have a choice between those residents that can get to their GP in the hospital in the morning, but that cannot get home from work or cannot get to work of an evening, that is going to have a local economic impact on our economy and our jobs and our people. We need to capture that and understand that, because if that's what the county do, if the county damage our economy because of their choices, then we need to understand that. If it protects our residents going to hospital in the morning, that's a good thing. But there's a cost benefit to that, a nasty one, and we need to understand it. So we need to explore that, Chair. I want a response from the Cabinet on what the economic impact is going to be of bus services going on a Sunday and bus services going of an evening. We need to understand that.
I am going to propose later that our work programme allows for us to return to the outcomes from this meeting on the 8th of July. But we do have, we have a new constitution, and we have a committee that includes within its remit public transport. And I wonder if its chairman would like to comment on where, no, he wouldn't, I can see from his face, where that committee might play a role in the forthcoming reviews.
I repeat what I said at the first meeting of this committee. I would be very happy to pick up the work going forward, but the consensus of this committee at that meeting was that this committee wanted to take forward the outcome of this meeting. So I'm not, I'm happy to pick it up, happy to give it priority, but that wasn't what this committee wanted when we met 2 weeks ago, a week ago, whenever it was.
Councillor Putty.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I just hope that this is not going to be just a talking shop. How much of what the public brought and we, the councillors, actually put forward can be taken, whether can be resolved. There are some of these matters can be resolved in a very short time, some in the medium time, and some in the long term that we can look at. Can I have some response, please?
I was sort of responding to that before you spoke, Dan, in that we've been promised a review. We have processes within the council. I did mention at our last meeting we seem to have 3 parallel processes, and I hope we can narrow that down to 1, through which the member level bodies can be involved in the consultation that this council already has told us about, or rather the cabinet members told us about the partnership. But at our next meeting, I would like to sort of summarise that, and I will still be advocating handing it over to the committee that has that responsibility. But that's not a matter for our visitors. I can see Councillor Cubitt.
Yes, I am going to just say, well, I've got a question for Councillor Wibber, but firstly, just to confirm, I completely agree with his statement that an enormous amount of money was diverted from the southern counties under the previous government, the Labour government, such that the spend per head in the southern counties was reduced dramatically, and there was a 6 times government grant spend rerouted to the north of England, and we lost overnight something like 60 million per annum in Hampshire alone. And when you lose 60 million per annum, that normally means that we, the taxpayers, have to finance the difference. So that is an incredibly relevant response that he has. However, we are where we are, and we have a problem. And what I'd just like to know is, can he or his colleague advise what the current transport spend is per head for our borough in subsidy, so that we have a figure that is relevant to the October discussion? Because instead of talking in generalities, the truth of the matter is it's always the numbers that are the key. And if we know what the per head spend of the county is for our borough, and we know how much money we generate, which we reroute to the county because of the council tax money, I'm sure most of you residents are aware, only £80 is retained by the borough, and the remainder of all your council tax goes to the county. So then we then have A, a benchmark, and B, we then know what we're talking in specifics and not in generalities.
Are those fair questions without notice?
Yeah, it's a fair question, but it's one that I'll get the result for and let you know. But of course, you may retain £80 as a borough council, but I'm guessing you've got lots of parishes, got the police authority, got the fire authority. They all take their cut as well from the council tax. But I will let you know what we spend on public transport in Basingstoke and Deane per head. Yes.
Yes, we have another meeting of this committee on the 8th of July, so if it's possible for it to be answered in good time before that. I know it's nearly tomorrow, but there we are.
Thank you, Chair. It's nearly 10 o'clock at night. We started here at 6:30, and some of us started earlier than that. I think it's time to wind up. That's the bottom line here. And I think it's time to wind up because we have heard a reasonably articulate range of members of the public expressing severe dissatisfaction with the bus service changes that took place in February. We have got no answers for them at the moment. We have had an apology. We've had an acknowledgement that it could have been done better, and we've had a straightforward indication that we can review it in the late September, October time for Mr. Dyer, and that's welcome. We know that Hampshire County Council see themselves as having to make cuts to the subsidised services, but the motion did not talk about subsidised services. It was only talking about the commercial services, and it was the commercial services that the public was complaining about. We do need to develop the arrangements that we have. The liaison meeting could be more effective, could certainly have a greater input from actual ward representatives. And I can assure you in the future, if we have anything to do with it, we will have greater input into the liaison meetings. And we will have greater output from such liaison meetings because we inform the public directly. I do believe we should go forward with regret that we've had to do it this way. I suspect that there's never been a bus meeting of this nature in Basingstoke before of this size. The issue was a large impact. The issue generated a lot of concern. The issue affected an awful lot of families. People who are ill, people who can't get on the bus, people who can't get on the bus to go to the hospital because it's the wrong bus, people who've lost their jobs, actually lost their jobs, or had to reduce their hours because they can't get back and forth to work. These are serious, important issues for the members of the public. We need to look at how we can ameliorate it, and we will seek to contribute effectively in the review that Mr. Dyer talked about in the latter part of this year, and we will attempt to do that in a spirit of partnership. Thank you.
That was a very good summary, I think, Sean, and I think we'll all move on from that. Councillor Potter, do you need to add to that?
Well, I think I do, because I don't think it's entirely a support of my colleague, but that's not going to be the first time. In regard to where we are tonight, I thank Councillor Woodford for being as open as he can be, I suppose, at this stage. But the reality is, and I think the nuances of whether these are commercial or subsidised services are lost on many of the people that actually receive these services in Basingstoke. And quite frankly, I think if we're being honest about it, and Councillor Woodward can prevaricate if he wants to about this, we are heading for dramatic cuts later this year. There's no ifs, no buts about this. And the implications for the customers in Basingstoke are going to be massive. And unless Basingstoke reacts to that, and this is where we come into play, Chair, I think this is a matter for our own cabinet, really, as much as any of the committees of this council, because nobody will fill the gap if we don't. It's certainly not going to be the county council who are going to cut a further £1.5 million from the way the service provision is made. And the impact, the social impact on the people in Basingstoke is going to be dramatic. And we've got to recognise that. And this is 6 months down the line. And if we think it's bad now, and quite frankly, Stagecoach isn't going to fill that void. If we think it's bad now, it's going to get 10 times worse in 6 months' time. And we better be ready for that in the way that we want to provide facilities for the people of Basingstoke who pay good money through their council tax to receive this type of service.
Well, thank you. I really want... I was about to thank Mr. Dyer, but if you'd like to say something first.
It was only just a brief comment on subsidies, if I may, because I wouldn't want the members of the public here tonight to go away with an impression that the end of the world is nigh. I don't for one second mean to belittle the impact on individuals or individual families who've been affected by bus service changes now, or who may be affected in the forthcoming county council review. But I think we ought to just remember that, as Councillor Woodward said, 7 out of 8 passenger journeys, I haven't got the exact number, I think it's somewhere between 12 and 14% are the number of journeys that are made on supported services. So that means that if the county council withdrew every penny of its support for bus services, and Basingstoke and Dean Borough made the same decision, so there was zero support for supported bus services, that's saying that 86% of Basingstoke residents wouldn't notice a single difference, because the vast majority of services are provided commercially. I don't want to belittle anything, but I wouldn't want people to go away with the thought that if there was a reduction in subsidy, that there won't be any bus services in Basingstoke, because that's just not true.
I think that's understood, but I think this committee has shown tonight we have a very great concern for the other 14% and would probably like another 20% on top to use buses. But thank you very much to Stagecoach, particularly Mr. Dyer.
What about double-decker buses?
Okay, your bonus item, double-decker buses.
Thank you. Yeah, the eBay. If you want to come and buy an old double-decker, come and see me afterwards. I'm sure we can fix you up with a very nice one. The Disability Discrimination Act sets a clear timescale where all minibuses have to be wheelchair accessible by the end of this year, all single-decker buses by the end of next year, and all double-deckers by the end of 2016. We have already got the entire single-decker bus fleet wheelchair accessible, so we were well over 2 years ahead of the game on that one. The old step entrance double deckers represent, I think, about 14% of our fleet at the moment, and that we will easily beat the end of 2016 deadline to get rid of them all. And actually this autumn, whilst they won't be brand new ones, we will be bringing some more wheelchair accessible double deckers into Basingstoke this autumn.
As a matter of interest, all double deckers, some of them are accessible now. I mean, I see them turn up and I think, is it or isn't it? So, you know, you just got to be judged. There are some double deckers that are accessible and actually very good.
Obviously, I'm not going to let anyone comment on that. Thank you very much, Mr. Dyer and Stagecoach. As I said earlier, you didn't have to come here, and nobody's withheld any of their forthright comments, and you've taken them on the tune. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Woodward and Mr. Shelley, for coming. I'm sorry that we kept you waiting so long, although I did give you fair warning, I think. But there was so much that we had to talk to Stagecoach about. And thank you for all of you members of the public for being here. For those of you who spoke, have added to our understanding of the whole thing. I hope you'll agree that this committee has been extremely robust in its consideration and not sort of pulled any punches. We've done our best, but this has got to be the beginning of something, not the end of something, and we will, at our next meeting, be considering the outcome. I've suggested one way forward, but for sure, none of the members of Basingstoke are going to sit back and let someone else be doing all the talking from now on. And the cabinet member has already explained what's already happening, and we'll all be involved in that. So thanks everybody for that. I'm not going to close the meeting just yet, but I'm closing this item and saying goodbye to anyone who's here just for the buses. But members, I am hoping that we'll discuss and approve our work programme before we go home. But I suggest a 10-minute break. Is that? My last bus isn't for another hour yet, and that's a very sore point. Sorry. Members, can we reconvene now, please? Members, can we take our seats again, please?
Chair, can I just clarify? There was no apology from our UKIP member this evening, was there?
I haven't received it, but Julia...
Where is he?
Chairman, if it assists the committee, can I apologise for UKIP, full stop?
That doesn't exist in the slightest, but never mind.
Order, order. We are still online. Have we got a quorum? Well, the Constitution requires us to review our work programme at every meeting. And as it happens, we haven't even approved a work programme yet, so we have nothing left to do. But what I suggest we do in the time we have this evening, you've all received, I hope, the draft B work plan. If we can agree the content for Tuesday, the 8th of July, then we can get on with next week, and next week we can have a fuller discussion on the rest of it.
Agreed.
Thank you, Chair. Totally understand that. Forgive me for doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I would like to add something, I think, pretty important that we didn't discuss at the last meeting, and that, of all things, I think, should be on our agenda. A letter was sent before the election even began regarding the issues of flooding and what happened in Buckskin. It isn't just Buckskin, there are other areas of the borough, but I think a part of the work programme that we undertake should be to have an appropriate, proper scrutiny of the issues surrounding the flooding and the issues that residents are facing, so that it can be done properly by this authority. That's what those residents asked for. It is, to be fair, what county have tried to do behind closed doors, and we don't know what the result actually is. This authority hasn't yet, and I think we should. So I'd like to recommend, and I'm happy to put some words together to formalise that with others in a bit more detail for next meeting, but I would like to formally say now I'd like to ask that to be included on the work programme.
Councillor Harvey is giving notice that at the next meeting he'll be making a specific proposal for reviewing the flooding. Come back and support it next time. Could I just ask formally for a show of hands on adopting this work plan as it applies to the 8th of July?
You've nominated me as chair of the performance panel, and I've arranged to make sure that we have first performance panel next Monday, so that a report can go to the next proper full scrutiny meeting. And I think we need to recognise that the performance panel will likely have a minor report. It'll never be a major report, because the report that comes to this level will be an exception report effectively. And all members of this committee will have the performance panel papers anyway. So I would like to see on the work programme at each point a report from the performance panel. That's all. Thank you.
I think you'll find the draft in front of you does have that at those at those points, and it's on. Julia has informed me the agenda's already been published, so I'm determined this committee should agree to it tonight. Can I get formal agreement to this work plan, subject to review on the 8th of July? Right. The meeting's closed.